housing. The government has adopted a number of measures. These include tilting towards public housing and land allocation, establishing the housing ladder for home ownership, delinking the price of home ownership scheme flats from market prices, imposing tenancy controls on subdivided units through legislation, providing cash allowances to eligible PRH applicants who have been waiting for PRH for a long time, and building transitional housing units. As for land supply, a multi-pronged approach has been adopted to press ahead with the related work at full steam. I must express my gratitude to the central government for staunch and unfailing support for the Hong Kong SAR. My appreciation also goes to all honourable members here for the diligence and dedication, to the statutory bodies for their professional cooperation, as well as numerous government advisory committees for their suggestions and advice. I must also thank my governing team and civil servants at all levels for their hard work, as well as members of the public for their encouragement. I hope that 2021 policy address delivered today will gain the recognition and support of the Electoral and the public at large. This year marks the centenary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. The smooth return of Hong Kong to the motherland on the 1st of July 1997 is an integral part of the CPC's century-old cause. In this speech at the ceremony celebrating the 100th anniversary of the founding of the CPC, Secretary-General Xi Jinping remarked that we should stay true to the letter and spirit of this principle of one country, two systems, under which the people of Hong Kong administer Hong Kong with a high degree of autonomy. We should ensure the exercise of overall jurisdiction over Hong Kong by the central government and the implementation of the legal systems and enforcement mechanisms for the Hong Kong SAR to safeguard national security. And while protecting China's sovereignty, security and development interests, we should ensure social stability in Hong Kong and maintain lasting prosperity and stability in the Hong Kong SAR. This important speech is a further unequivocal affirmation of the central government's unwavering determination to uphold the one country, two systems principle, consistent with the decision adopted at the 4th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of the CPC in 2019 on upholding the principle of one country, two systems, maintaining lasting prosperity and stability of Hong Kong and Macau, and promoting the peaceful reunification of China as one of the notable strengths of the state and governing systems of our country. Over the past 2 years, Hong Kong has encountered unprecedented political challenges, putting national security at huge risk. Nevertheless, the central government has continued to act in accordance with the Constitution of the People's Republic of China and the basic law of the Hong Kong SAR by upholding the principle of one country, two systems. The promulgation and implementation of the national security law has provided a timely curb on the chaos in the city, while patriots administering Hong Kong has ensured under the improved electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR. In this process, the central government has shown its firm commitment and stayed true to its original aspiration in the implementation of one country, two systems. I have a profound first-hand understanding of this by being deeply involved in the related work as chief executive. Any accusation that these two major initiatives have undermined one country, two systems is nonsense and groundless. In his address at the celebrations of the 20th anniversary of Hong Kong's return to the motherland and the inaugural ceremony on the 5th term Hong Kong SAR government held on the 1st of July 2017, President Xi Jinping pointed out that as a pioneering initiative, the implementation of one country, two systems was an evolving process. The experience over the past 2 years or so has clearly shown that in addressing new scenarios and new issues, we can only resort to steadfastly upholding one country, two systems and implementing central government's overall jurisdiction over Hong Kong while adhering to law-based administration without wavering. In the face of anti-China destabilizing forces entering the political system of the Hong Kong SAR through elections, deluding and inciting young people through education and the media, undermining Hong Kong's stability through illegal violent acts, and endangering national security through collusion with external forces, the central government has taken resolute action to defuse the crisis for Hong Kong and make sure that the implementation of one country, two systems get back on track. To ensure the robustness of one country, two systems, the Hong Kong SAR must continually improve the governance system under one country, two systems, resolve the problems at root, and restore order from chaos. The National Security Law was promulgated for implementation on the 30th of June last year. Since then, the Committee for Safeguarding National Security of the Hong Kong SAR, which I chair, and the relevant enforcement authorities, under the guidance of the National Security Advisor appointed by the central government, and with the support of the Office for Safeguarding National Security of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong SAR, have spared no effort in fulfill our responsibility to prevent, suppress, and punish acts and activities that endanger national security in accordance with the law. That said, to safeguard safeguard national security in a comprehensive manner, there is still a substantial amount of work for the Hong Kong SAR government, including 1. Taking forward proactively the enactment of local legislation to implement Article 23 of the Basic Law in Hong Kong. By making reference to past studies and information, the implementation experience of the national security law and the relevant court verdicts, as well as taking into account the actual circumstances in Hong Kong, the Secretary for Security is drawing up effective and pragmatic proposals and provisions and formulating effective publicity programs to prevent those who are opposed to China and attempt to destabilize Hong Kong from taking advantage of the situation to mislead the public with ill intentions. 2. Reviewing or reviving existing legislation to ensure that on the mission of comprehensively safeguarding national security, relevant laws are available to the enforcement authorities for action and strict enforcement so as to bring offenders to account. The Film Censorship Amendment Bill 2021, already scrutinized by Electoral, is one of the examples. Other issues which need to be addressed include combating fake news, safeguarding cybersecurity. The Chief Secretary for Administration will coordinate the relevant work. 3. Strengthening the work on the prevention of terrorist activities and proactively strengthening public communication, guidance, supervision, and regulation measures over matters concerning national security, including those relating to schools, social organizations, the media, and the Internet. In this regard, the Secretary for Education has already requested schools to formulate and implement as early as possible plans on national security education. 4. Strengthening national security education and raising law-abiding and national security awareness of Hong Kong people, in particular the youth, through different activities and approaches. I'm pleased to note that under the leadership of the Secretary for Security, 6 disciplined services and 2 auxiliary services are committed to enhancing their work in helping our young people develop positive thinking and law-abiding awareness. For example, the Correctional Services Department will launch the Walk with Youth program and set up a change lab to assist young persons in custody. And 5. Implementing further the oath-taking requirements for public officers as stipulated in Article 6 of the National Security Law and the amended local legislation, including, for example, all members of the just-formed Election Committee. Following the passage of the decision on improving the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR by the National People's Congress in March this year, and the adoption of the amended Annex 1 and 2 to the Basic Law by the Standing Committee of the NPC on the 30th of March, the Hong Kong SAR government has spared no effort in taking forward the relevant work with the cooperation of Electoral and completed the necessary procedures on time, such as enactment of local legislation and relevant voter registration arrangements. The Election Committee subsector ordinary elections, the first elections after improving the electoral system, were successfully held on the 19th of September. The Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau, or CMAB, will work closely with the Electoral Affairs Commission to ensure that the upcoming elections, namely the 7th-term legislative election and the 6th-term chief executive election, are conducted in a fair, open, and honest manner in accordance with the law, thereby fully implementing the principle of patriots administering Hong Kong. By drawing on our experience, we will improve the polling arrangements and take forward various enhancement measures. In light of the COVID-19 epidemic, the CMAB is actively examining proposals to enable Hong Kong electors in the mainland to cast their vote in the legislative election to be conducted in December. To ensure that the one country, two systems principle is fully and accurately implemented, we must adhere to the Constitution and the Basic Law. The Basic Law Promotion Steering Committee will continue to take forward publicity and public education on the Basic Law through diversified approaches, while the Secretary for Justice is planning to host a Basic Law conference and publish the Basic Law selected drafting materials and significant cases in April next year. On education at the school level, the Citizenship and Social Development subject has been introduced to replace the Liberal Studies subject starting from Secondary 4 in the current school year. With Hong Kong under one country, two systems as one of the 3 themes of the subject. I found this an excellent start when I visited a secondary school to observe a lesson in early September. To enable teachers of the Citizenship and Social Development subject to have a better grasp of the constitutional status, powers and functions of the Chief Executive under one country, two systems, I've proposed to the Secretary for Education that I myself can give a class to teachers who are interested. More more channels should be provided for public education work. Radio Television Hong Kong, RTHK, as a public service broadcaster, should play an active role in promoting the Constitution and the Basic Law so as to fulfill its public purposes and mission under the Charter of RTHK, which include promoting public understanding of the implementation of one country, two systems in Hong Kong, as well as engendering a sense of citizenship and national identity. In this regard, I have expressly requested the Director of Broadcasting to follow up. The national flag, national emblem, and the national anthem are the symbols and signs of a country and must be protected by the law and respected by the people. Over the past year or so, the Electoral has already passed the National Anthem Ordinance and the National Flag and National Emblem Amendment Ordinance. We will introduce corresponding amendments to the Regional Flag and Regional Emblem Ordinance with a view to fulfilling constitutional duty of the Hong Kong SAR. The rule of law is a core value and the cornerstone of Hong Kong's success. Hong Kong's rule of law has rock-solid foundation. Our mature legal system is renowned for being transparent, trustworthy, and fair. The Department of Justice initiates criminal prosecutions without any interference, and our courts exercise judicial power independently, free from any interference. And a robust legal aid system is in place to ensure that all Hong Kong residents are equal before the law. These essential elements are protected under the Basic Law. Since our return to the motherland, Hong Kong's laws and judicial independence have been held in high regard. To consolidate and promote Hong Kong as a city upholding the rule of law requires community-wide participation and people's self-awareness of safeguarding the authority of the rule of law. To enhance the community's proper understanding and practice of the rule of law, the Secretary for Justice has personally steered the 10-year initiative Vision 2030 for Rule of Law. A rule of law database with objective data will be set up to assist in assessing the rule of law and facilitate research and capacity building. A booklet entitled Vision 2030 Empowerment has also been published recently in simple language to instill law-abiding awareness in our secondary and primary school students. Fair trial and due process are essential elements of the rule of law. In this respect, the judiciary plays a pivotal role. In discharging their responsibilities, judges look only at the letter and the spirit of the law without any interference. This notwithstanding, independent judicial power does not preclude a party from lodging a review of a court ruling or complaint against the conduct of individual judges. In this regard, the judiciary should also keep abreast of the times. Since taking office in January this year, the Chief Justice of the Court of Final Appeal, Mr. Andrew Jiang Pui-Nang, has refined the system for handling public complaints and proactively addressed the backlog of cases. Have asked relevant departments to fully assist the judiciary in tackling the problem of courtroom shortage. Apart from the facilities currently under conversion and the reopening of the decommissioned Tsuen Wan Law Courts building, an additional mega courtroom and supporting facilities will be set up at Wan Chai Tower to handle cases involving a large number of defendants before the commissioning of the new district court building at the end of 2027. The improvement works will commence in the first half of next year. As the backbone of the Hong Kong SAR, the civil service plays a vital role in implementing the principle of one country, two systems. All serving civil servants have either taken an oath or signed a declaration to uphold basic law and swear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. To raise the self-awareness of safeguarding national security in discharging their duties, we must enhance civil servants' understanding of the Constitution and the Basic Law, reinforce a sense of national identity, and deepen their capability for broad and strategic thinking. We've included in the national security law and induction training for public officers and are making continuous efforts to enhance serving officers' understanding of the constitutional order of the Hong Kong SAR. With the establishment of the Civil Service College in its interim accommodation at the end of this year, and with its head assuming office next year, the Civil Service Bureau will put in place a more systematic training framework and arrange for more middle and senior level civil servants to take part in national studies programs or thematic visits in the mainland. The CSB will press ahead at full steam with the construction of the Civil Service College in Kwun Tong to further strengthen civil service training and endeavor to rigorously uphold the loyalty and integrity of civil servants. Ensuring patriots administering Hong Kong is cardinal to improving Hong Kong's electoral system. It is also conducive to enhancing enhancing the effective governance of the Hong Kong SAR. Assuming the dual role as head of the Hong Kong SAR and the Hong Kong SAR government, the Chief Executive takes full responsibility for the implementation of one country, two systems principle and the basic law in Hong Kong, with the Hong Kong SAR adhering to the executive-led structure under the core leadership of the Chief Executive, who is directly accountable to the Central People's Government. I believe in actual operation, there is no conflict between an executive-led system and a system of mutual cooperation with checks and balances between the executive authorities and the legislature. Nonetheless, the politics in Electoral from some time in the past had become so extreme that tactics such as filibustering and mutual destruction had seriously damaged the otherwise constructive and interactive relationship between the government and the legislature, impeding the legislative and funding allocation work that will drive Hong Kong's economic development and improve people's livelihood. Since those members who oppose for the sake of opposing left Electoral in November last year, the current legislative session has been fruitful. Having duly exercised its constitutional powers and functions, a total of 46 bills are expected to be enacted and funding of more than $320 billion to be approved. The legislative session of the 7th term of Electoral will commence on the 1st of January next year. Under the improved electoral system, 90 members from various sectors who fulfill the criterion of patriots administering Hong Kong will be vested with the function of overseeing the work of the government. To strengthen the executive-legislature relationship, I will announce, along with the policy address told today, 40 legislative proposals compiled by the government for early discussion at the community level so that Electoral can better perform its role in conveying public opinions. Many of these proposals have taken on board the views raised by incumbent members in the past, including introducing mandatory reporting for child abuse prevention, streamlining the statutory procedures for land development, and strengthening regulation over the service quality of residential care homes for the elderly and people with disabilities. All secretaries of departments and directors of bureaus will also enhance communications with members both inside and outside the chamber with a view to achieving good administration and governance. Next, new paradigm for a new future. To cater for local population growth and to meet the needs of economic development, the government has put in enormous efforts in town planning over the past half-century, including developing new towns in Tsuen Wan, Sha Tin, Tai Po, Tuen Mun in the early years, as well as new development areas or NDAs in Kwu Tung North, Fanling North, Hung Shui Kiu, and Ha Tsuen in recent years. Though such planning developments have yielded significant achievements, there are also inadequacies in attaining job-home balance and self-sufficiency, for instance. Furthermore, the excessive politicization in the councils and deliberate opposition and resistance orchestrated by anti-government radicals in recent years made it extremely difficult for us to make any move for our town planning work, leading to serious impediments on socio-economic development and causing acute problems in people's livelihood. With the implementation of the national security law and an improvement to our electoral system, chaos has ended and social order has been restored. We're now embracing a new era where we can focus on economic development. The Hong Kong SAR government should be visionary and resolute in mapping out the future of Hong Kong in a proactive manner. To this end, I propose to develop the northern part of Hong Kong into a metropolitan area ideal for people to live, work, and travel, and we should create more land resources for residential use and development of industries. With an area of 300 square kilometers, the proposed metropolis covers from the west to the east the Shenzhen-Hong Kong boundary control points economic belt, as well as the deeper hinterlands. It is well positioned to share the fruits of not only the complementarity between the respective strengths of Hong Kong and Shenzhen, but also the integrated development and will in turn facilitate Hong Kong to better integrate in the overall development of our country. This northern metropolis will be developed as an international I&T hub with unique metropolitan landscape marked with urban-rural integration and coexistence of development and conservation. While the harbour metropolis, supporting Hong Kong's status as an international financial centre, will be expanded to include the reclaimed land of Kaoicha Artificial Islands under the Lantau Chamorro vision. The two metropolises located in the north and south of Hong Kong will provide massive land and enhance the spatial layout of Hong Kong. These two metropolises, spearheading their respective economic engines and complementing each other, will drive the future development of Hong Kong. We will concurrently release the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy today to give a detailed account of the planning background, general principles, objectives, and action agenda of the Northern Metropolis for discussion and expression of views from different sectors of the community. Under the framework of One Country, Two Systems, the development strategy is the first strategic action agenda devised by the Hong Kong SAR government with a spatial concept and a strategic mindset going beyond the administrative boundary of Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Formulated on the basis of the Hong Kong 2030 Plus towards a planning vision and strategy transcending 2030, development strategy has taken full into account our country's support for Hong Kong as he underlined in the 14th Five-Year Plan, his aspirations for Hong Kong in the development of the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area, and the enormous opportunities brought about by the plan for comprehensive deepening reform and opening up of Tianhai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong Modern Service Industry Cooperation Zone for Hong Kong. Now that Hong Kong is back on the right track of One Country, Two Systems, this groundbreaking and visionary plan, which maps out new action directions and approaches for the long-term development prospects of Hong Kong, bears particular significance. The Northern Metropolis covers 2 district administration areas, including Yuen Long and North District, with a total land area of about 300 square kilometers. Metropolis does not refer to a region with a statutory status regime and administrative boundary. On the contrary, it is a large-scale urban space which is formed by interactions among various factors, including geographic characteristics, economic functions, ecological environment, transport connections, and development policies. In the metropolis, the multifunctional land uses with a highly concentrated residential and working population and enterprises can drive the economic development in its neighboring areas. It is lively and attractive with radiant effect, and its people enjoyed enriched lives in a unique spatial context with iconic nature, human civilization, and building landscapes. The Northern Metropolis encompasses the mature new towns in Tin Shui Wai, Yuen Long, and Fanling Shui, and the neighboring rural areas, as well as 6 NDAs and development nodes in different planning and development stages, namely Kutong North, Fanling North, Hung Shui Kiu, Ha Chun, Yuen Long South, Santin Lok Ma Chau, Man Kam To, and the New Territories North New Town. It is the most vibrant area where urban development and major population growth of Hong Kong in the next 20 years will take place. With as many as 7 land-based boundary control points, the Northern Metropolis will be the most important area in Hong Kong that facilitates our development integration with Shenzhen and connection with the GBA. Under the development strategy, the proposed individual development projects, together with the surrounding rural and conservation areas, will be integrated in an innovative and organic manner, conducive to upgrading the entire region to a metropolitan area. Such an integration can create the development capacity to meet the needs of our economy and our people's livelihood and a quality environment for sustainable development. All these will help us better respond to the new opportunities brought about by the deepened cooperation between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. In the course of reform and opening up of our country over the past 40 years or so, there's been a very close interaction between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. The construction of 7 land boundary control points and connected transport infrastructure from the west to the east has enabled the 2 cities to go beyond the Deep Bay, the Mears Bay, and the Shenzhen River to connect with each other, thereby forming a spatial framework of Twin Cities, 3 circles. The Twin Cities refer to Hong Kong and Shenzhen, whereas the 3 circles includes from the west to the east the Shenzhen Bay Quality Development Circle, the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Close Interaction Circle, and the Mears Bay Yan Chau Town Eco-Recreation Tourism Circle. The concept of Twin Cities, 3 circles covers the Shenzhen-Hong Kong boundary control points economic belt and the most maturely developed metropolitan core in Shenzhen, as well as the Northern Metropolis in Hong Kong, where the development potential is enormous with resources for urban development being speedily pulled in. The formation of the spatial concept of Twin Cities, 3 circles will facilitate close collaboration between the governments of Hong Kong and Shenzhen in areas such as economic development, infrastructure, I&T, people's livelihood, and ecological environment. By joining hands, we'll be able to achieve the synergy effect of 1 + 1 is greater than 2. In my Land Town Tomorrow vision proposal put forward in 2018 policy address, the transport infrastructure led concept won wide acceptance. The consolidation of the Northern Metropolis and the expansion in terms of development capacity will also be driven by a transportation system with railways as its backbone. The railway projects proposed in the development strategy strategy include 1. Constructing the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Railway linking up Hongshui, Kyohachun and Tianhai of Shenzhen. 2. Extending the Northern Link, which is being planned northwards to connect to the new Huanggang port in Shenzhen via the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Innovation Technology Park, HKSAR in the Lok Ma Chau Loop. 3. Exploring the extension of the East Rail Line to Luohu, Shenzhen, and the provision of co-location arrangement at the boundary control point on the Shenzhen side and provision of a new railway station for non-boundary crossing service between the existing Luohu station and the Shangshui station, with a view to unleashing the development potential around Luohu, Menkamto, and Shangshui North. 4. Extending the Northern Link eastwards from Kutong Station to connect with the areas of Luohu, Menkamto, and Hengyunwai, and further southwards to Fanning via Takuling and Queens Hill. And 5. Examining the feasibility of constructing an automated people mover system from Chimpei Choi to Pak Nai to promote the development of the area and Lau Fau San. In recent years, Hong Kong has made considerable achievements in I&T. Under the strategy of reindustrialization, the development of advanced manufacturing industries, which are based on new technologies and smart production, is also showing promising prospect. Yet the shortage of land will impede such development. While the 87-hectare HSITP in the loop now underway will provide a planned gross floor area about 3 times that of the Hong Kong Science Park at Pak Shek Kok, the scale is relatively humble when compared with the Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Zone or Shenzhen I&T Zone on the northern shore of the Shenzhen River with an area of more than 300 hectares. The development strategy puts forward a proposal to make an optimal use of the land vacated upon relocation of the Lok Ma Chau control point to the new Huanggang boundary control point in Shenzhen and a portion of the adjacent fish ponds and rural land. This, together with the original land use planning in the Santin Lok Ma Chau development node, will provide about 150 hectares of additional land for I&T uses to develop the Santin Technopole, with a view to creating a critical mass of I&T facilities with greater economy of scale. The plan to expand the Tianhai Cooperation Zone aims to foster a globally competitive business environment, which will bring about tremendous opportunities for Hong Kong's professional services. The development strategy suggests that Hong Kong should leverage this opportunity to upgrade Hongshui Kyohachun and make it the new territory's North Modern Services Center, and to build sizable landmark I&T facilities in Lau Fau Shan facing Tianhai on the other side of the Shenzhen Bay to provide enormous job opportunities in the northern metropolis. To achieve home-job balance, the development strategy suggests that we should formulate clear policies and administrative guidelines and select, as far as possible, the northern metropolis as the location for government facilities and offices which are non-location bound and employment driven. The northern metropolis has diverse habitats. There are wetlands on the list of wetlands of international importance under the Ramsar Convention to the west, a vast area of fish ponds in the center, and the proposed Robin's Nest Country Park, a marine park, and a world-class geopark to the east. The development strategy suggests that a proactive conservation policy should be formulated and implemented. Through the gradual resumption of several hundred hectares of private wetlands and fish ponds by the government for enhanced management, the ecological functions of around 2,000 hectares of conservation area, including the Maipo Inner Deep Bay Ramsar site, will be enhanced, thus achieving better conservation of wetlands in Hong Kong while creating a quality living environment for the northern metropolis. At present, a number of development projects planned or under planning in the northern metropolis are estimated to provide about 350,000 residential units. An additional 600 hectares of land or so could be developed with the northern metropolis for residential and industry purposes, with an estimated provision of about 165,000 to 186,000 residential units. Upon full development of the entire northern metropolis, a total of 905,000 to 926,000 residential units, including the existing 390,000 residential units in Yuen Long District and North District, will be available to accommodate a population of about 2.5 million. The total number of jobs in the metropolis will increase substantially from 116,000 at present to about 650,000 including 150,000 IT-related jobs. To effectively implement the development strategy for the Northern Metropolis, the Hong Kong SAR government must strengthen high-level steer, promote collaboration across bureaus and departments, formulate performance indicators for monitoring purposes, and work closely with the Shenzhen municipal government to take forward the relevant projects together. Our next step is to deliberate the details of the implementation mechanism. A possible option will be to create a Deputy Secretary of Department post in the next term government to steer large-scale regional developments such as the Northern Metropolis and the Lantau Tomorrow Vision. Even if there is no large-scale regional development project, I'm of the view that there is still a need to reorganize the policy bureaus to complement our policy focuses and meet social expectations. I propose that the current term government shall consult various sectors and stakeholders in the coming months to work out a detailed reorganization proposal for consideration and implementation by the next term government. After consolidating our experience in administration and as well as taking into account the views of electoral and relevant sectors, my initial thinking on the reorganization may take the following directions. 1. To set up a Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau to consolidate the culture portfolio and the creative industries and tourism portfolio currently under the Home Affairs Bureau and the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau respectively, thereby facilitating the development of Hong Kong as an East-meets-West center for international cultural exchange. 2. To split the Transport and Housing Bureau to provide a more dedicated high-level steer for these two major policy areas, enabling, in particular, the new Transport Bureau to focus on transport infrastructure, public transport services, and traffic management, which are matters closely related to people's livelihood, whilst facilitating the development of the logistics industry, as well as consolidating and enhancing Hong Kong's status as an international transportation sector and an international aviation hub. 3. To explore whether there is room to rationalize the work of the Housing Bureau upon the split of the Development Bureau, which is responsible for land development and public works, in order to expedite land supply for housing. 4. To expand the Innovation Technology Bureau into the Innovation Technology and Industry Bureau to change the perception that local industries are declining and highlight the role of R&T in promoting the development of reindustrialization in Hong Kong. And 5. To reorganize the Home Affairs Bureau into the Youth and District Affairs Bureau to step up efforts to address district issues of daily concern to the public with a district-based approach and provide a one-stop platform for promoting and supporting youth development. The above views are only intended to stimulate further thought. I hope that the new term LegCo may commence discussion on the reorganization of policy bureaus immediately upon its formation. In the next few months, I and all secretaries of departments and directors of bureaus will exchange views with stakeholders on this matter and formulate detailed proposals. Having put in place an enhanced government structure for more effective governance, what we also need is a professional and highly efficient governing team consisting of people devoted and loyal to the country and Hong Kong, adept at policy making as well as execution, and driven by a strong sense of responsibility and commitment to serving the people of Hong Kong with assiduity. I've served for 3 terms of the government as Director of Bureau, Chief Secretary for Administration, and now the Chief Executive. I fully recognize and have actually come across the difficulties in attracting talents to join this hot kitchen. I hope that with an improved electoral system, more patriots who love Hong Kong, who have the aspiration, ability, and commitment will be able to accept the challenge and join the governing team to make contributions to Hong Kong and the country. In addition, directors, civil servants, including permanent secretaries and heads of departments, which are at the core and highest echelons of the civil service, also play a critical role in the effective implementation of policies. I've asked the Secretary for the Civil Service to review the existing selection and appointment mechanism for the senior levels of the civil service in the coming months in accordance with the principle of meritocracy, with a view to appointing the most visionary and competent officers to the most suitable positions. I will invite the Public Service Commission to participate in the related work. Concerning manpower deployment of the public sector, I've in recent years encouraged colleagues to play an advocacy role in certain specific areas. In this aspect, the work of creating dedicated commissioner posts with specific responsibilities, such as Commissioner for Heritage, Commissioner for Sports, and Commissioner Commissioner for the Development of Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area is bearing fruit. The dedicated commissioner post served to highlight the importance of the government attaches the relevant policy areas. Also, the undesirable situation of fragmentation of responsibilities or that people have nowhere to turn to for assistance could be avoided. I've suggested to directors of bureaus that they make greater use of commissioner posts to take forward the relevant work. The post of Commissioner for Children, for example, should be conducive to helping the Labour and Welfare Bureau promote child protection, whereas the Commissioner for Harbourfront should facilitate the beautification of the Harbourfront by the Development Bureau, both within and outside the government. In this era of information explosion, an important aspect of government is the effective dissemination of government information so that the public can better and more quickly understand the policies of the government in the latest situation. I must admit this is an area that warrants the government's immediate improvements. Many people have told me from time to time that the contents of government press releases are too technical, not easily communicated to the public. The old-fashioned approach in message delivery has also failed to draw the attention of the community or allay public concerns promptly. The malicious attacks on or biased reports against the government over the past 2 years have highlighted that there is much room to improve our capability to communicate with the public. I have requested all secretaries of departments and directors of bureaus, with the support of the Director of Information Services and his team, to place more emphasis on information dissemination and public communication on government policies.
Now, economic development. The loud and clearing heading of integration into the national development and economic chapter in this year's policy address has expressly stated that developments of Hong Kong, our country, are closely related. Only by leveraging the central government's policy in support of Hong Kong can we give full play to our unique strengths, which will in turn bring continuous impetus to our economy. Hailed as an economic miracle, Hong Kong has evolved from an obscure fishing port to an international financial trade and transportation center today. Having undergone numerous rounds of restructuring, regardless of whether they occurred before or after our return to the motherland, the Hong Kong economy has always been closely intertwined with the development of our country. Driven by changes to the external environment, guided by the direction of the mainland policies and led by market forces, all these restructuring processes have been attributed to the remarkable acumen, brilliance, versatility, and can-do spirit of Hong Kong entrepreneurs. The current time government stresses that we should play the role of a facilitator and a promoter to keep connecting with the world, to open up markets and explore business opportunities for our enterprises. Yet, notwithstanding the huge mainland market, the local political forces against the central government has more than often than not stood in our way, preventing us from reaping fully the benefits of our country's development. Fortunately, the implementation of the national security law and improvement of our electoral system have restored safety and stability in society. Hong Kong is now ready again for a new start for economic development. The 14th Five-Year Plan, the Outline Development Plan for the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, the plan for comprehensive deepening reform and opening up of the Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong Modern Service Industry Cooperation Zone, the economic development pattern of not only greater domestic circulation but also domestic international dual circulation, as well as the Belt and Road Initiative, have brought unlimited opportunities for enterprises and professional services provided in Hong Kong, thereby allowing Hong Kong to benefit from its proximity to the mainland. I will highlight how we shall leverage the central government's support to enhance our competitiveness, as the 8th international centers are hubs charted in the 14th Five-Year Plan with a view to building a brighter future for Hong Kong. We've prepared fact sheets on each center or hub for promotional purposes. All are welcome to read and help distribute to those interested. The financial services industry is an important pillar of our economy and the most internationalized industry of all. Despite unprecedented challenges in the past 2 years, our financial system has remained stable and business has been vibrant. Evidently, the mainland's sustained economic growth and the further opening up and reform its financial sector have provided strong support for the development of our financial services industry. Capitalizing on our advantages under one country, two systems, Hong Kong's role as a bridge for international investors to access the mainland market and for mainland funds to reach out to the international markets will be all the more significant. At the talks on the 14th Five-Year Plan for various sectors in Hong Kong, the central government delegation has reiterated support for Hong Kong to further promote mutual financial market access with the mainland, develop offshore renminbi business, strengthen its position as an international asset management center and risk management development, development to a green finance center in the GBA and promote, amongst others, its financial services towards high-end and high-value-added development. And this connection will set up our efforts in the following 5 areas. First, supporting Hong Kong Exchange and Clearing Limited to further enhance our listing regime and to establish a listing regime for special purpose acquisition companies in Hong Kong after consulting the market. 2, expanding further the channels for the two-way flow of cross-boundary renminbi funds and developing offshore renminbi products and tools, including looking into specific measures to enhance demand for the issuance and trading of renminbi securities, allowing stocks traded via the southbound trading under Stock Connect to be denominated in renminbi. 3, further attracting family offices to establish a presence in Hong Kong by considering the provision of tax concessions, thereby enhancing Hong Kong's status as an international asset and wealth management center. 4, supporting the Hong Kong Acts to promote cooperation with the Guangdong Futures Exchange and financial product development related to the areas of carbon emission trading and assessing the feasibility of developing Hong Kong into regional carbon trading center, thereby strengthening Hong Kong as a regional green and sustainable finance hub. And 5, promoting cross-boundary financing technologies and actively exploring with the mainland the formation of a one-step sandbox network to facilitate financial institutions and information technology companies from Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau to test cross-border fintech applications. To enhance Hong Kong's status as an international transportation center, our port has to maintain a strength of high efficiency, good connectivity, and wide coverage. We also need to improve and promote wide application of digital technology in business processes and operations by the marine and port industry for the development of a smart port. We explore in collaboration with the industry concrete initiatives to drive the development of a smart port. On logistics, we have to further facilitate the flow of logistics information in the GBA and improvements to intermodal operation. We also need to develop high-value-added logistics and encourage the logistics industry to make wider use of technology to enhance productivity. Another major development direction is high-value-added maritime business services, including ship registration, ship finance and management, marine insurance, and maritime legal and arbitration services. Tax concessions will be introduced to attract members of the maritime industry to establish a business presence in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong SL government will also expand the overseas service network of the Hong Kong Shipping Registry of the Marine Department. In addition to desk services in London, Shanghai, Singapore, and Sydney, new desks will be set up in San Francisco, Tokyo, and Toronto to provide better support for Hong Kong registered ships. In terms of cross-boundary land transport, 3 major cross-boundary infrastructure projects, namely the Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Expressway link, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, and the Lantong Port Hanyumai Boundary Control Point, were completed one after another in the past few months, thereby helping Hong Kong integrate into one-hour driving circle in the GBA and enhancing connectivity of the infrastructure in the GBA. The governments of the Hong Kong and Shenzhen established the Task Force for Hong Kong-Shenzhen Cooperation of Cross-Boundary Railway Infrastructure to jointly develop the GBA on the rail. Besides, the governments of Guangdong and Hong Kong are pressing ahead with the quota-free scheme for Hong Kong private cars traveling to Guangdong via the HKSAR. After the epidemic control is brought under control and the removal of quarantine requirements for cross-boundary travel is gradually implemented, the scheme will allow eligible Hong Kong private cars to travel between Hong Kong and Guangdong via the HKSAR without the need to obtain a regular quota in advance. The governments of Guangdong and Hong Kong also agreed to extend the scheme to cover other land boundary control points in due course. Having the advantage of being a highly internationalized city, Hong Kong plays an important role in international trade. Last year, our global ranking in terms of total merchandise value rose to the 6th place, benefiting from the stable supply chains maintained through effective control of the epidemic in the mainland. The value of Hong Kong's total merchandise trade has rebounded since the 4th quarter of last year and hit a record high of $6,509.9 billion for the first 8 months of this year. The current time government is keen to foster closer commercial trade and investment relations with ASEAN. We have also seeking to join the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, as soon as possible. In the context of domestic circulation under the dual circulation development pattern of our country, we will continuously seek to create more favorable conditions for Hong Kong enterprises to enter the mainland markets under CEPA. The convention and exhibition industry is crucial to Hong Kong as an international trade center. To cope with the impact of the pandemic, the government is implementing the convention and exhibition industry subsidy scheme with a commitment of over $1 billion to provide impetus for the C&E industry. The government will further extend the validity of the scheme to the end of next year and will enhance its implementation details to provide timely and more targeted assistance to the industry. In the long run, the government will continue to expand C&E facilities, including redeveloping the sites of the 3 government towers in Wan Chai North and the Kwong Wan Fire Station into C&E facilities, hotel and Grade A offices, as well as expanding the Asia World Expo in order to consolidate and enhance Hong Kong's status as an international C&E hub. Small and medium enterprises play an indispensable role in the real economy of Hong Kong, but they may encounter liquidity problems from time to time. The existing paper-based trading processes and dispersed storage of commercial data have rendered it difficult for banks to collect and verify the relevant information. If credit assessments cannot be made according to up-to-date operational or financial data, banks may instead require enterprises to provide collateral such as properties to reduce credit risks. This is a long-standing problem in SME financing. We think that the optimal use of data may offer a solution to the problem. To this end, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority is in the process of developing the commercial data interchange, which is expected to commence operation next year. This new financial infrastructure offers a centralized platform for connecting the banks through which enterprises can authorize service providers such as payment systems, public bodies or utility companies to furnish the banks with the data. The banks can then make more accurate predictions about the sales and operation of the enterprises, thereby reducing the need for enterprises to provide collateral. The commercial data interchange enables SMEs to make use of their own data to gain access to more convenient financing services. It is also a major breakthrough in the development of financial infrastructure in Hong Kong, under which a platform is established to facilitate secure data sharing based on the consent of enterprises and allow the local banking system to serve the real economy more efficiently. The rule of law in Hong Kong provides reassurances to mainland and international investors when conducting business transactions or resolving commercial disputes in Hong Kong. To press ahead with the development of Hong Kong into a major center for international legal and dispute resolution services in the Asia-Pacific region, we adopt a wide range of measures, including attracting international legal and dispute resolution institutions to set up offices in Hong Kong Legal Hub, promoting international legal cooperation exchanges, as well as securing international organizations to hold decision-making meetings in Hong Kong. The DFJ has successfully secured the hosting of the Asia-African Legal Consultative Organization annual meeting and the intersessional meeting of Working Group 3 of the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law in Hong Kong at the end of this year. To enable the legal sector to meet the demand or to meet the need for legal and dispute resolution services in the GBA, the DOJ will continue to organize the GBA Legal Professional Examination, develop a set of unified qualification, accreditation, and other reference standards for mediators in the GBA, taking forward the measures of allowing wholly owned Hong Kong enterprises registered in Tianhai, Shenzhen to adopt Hong Kong law and choose for arbitration to be seated in Hong Kong, and strive to extend such measures to other areas of Shenzhen and even the entire GBA. The current term government has made unprecedented strides to promote INT development by investing more than $130 billion over 4 years. Hong Kong's INT industry is flourishing at the moment, and the interaction among the government, industry, academia, and research sectors has also been strengthened significantly. To sustain this good momentum, we're keen to develop more comprehensive INT ecosystem so as to enable reindustrialization to take root in Hong Kong and complement INT development in Shenzhen and the GBA, thus making INT a new impetus to the economy of Hong Kong and developing Hong Kong into an international INT hub as promulgated in the 14th Five-Year Plan. Next year marks the 20th anniversary of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, the flagship INT institution in Hong Kong. The Science Park is now home to about 900 technology enterprises and startups in areas such as artificial intelligence, life and health, environmental technology, and 4 unicorns have been incubated therein so far. In the past 3 years, its tenants or incubatees have raised funds amounting to $33 billion. It is estimated that for every $1 invested by the HKSTPC, an external investment of $13 will be attracted. The Science Park expansion is being carried out in full swing so that more space can be provided for technology enterprises and startups. To prepare for future needs, I propose that the government should immediately explore expanding the Science Park's capacity. In this regard, the government will revive the Malaysia Reclamation Project, which, together with the land to be vacated by the relocation of Sha-Tin sewage treatment works to Canvins, will provide a total of 88 hectares of new lands. We propose that the newly provided land should be mainly for INT development rather than the originally suggested residential use, so as to strengthen the development of the Eastern Corridor with INT as a major economic function. We agree that opportunity should be taken to improve the public transport service connection of Pak Shek Kok and the Science Park. The government will invite the MTRCL to study the construction of a new Science Park Pak Shek Kok station of the East Rail Line at the current site of the Hong Kong Education University Sports Centre at Pak Shek Kok, and its provisioning at a site near HK's main campus in line with the university's earlier request to facilitate use by students. The government also make the best use of the development potential of the station site and its adjoining land to provide more housing, parking spaces, shops, and public facilities for local residents. I've asked the Development Bureau, the THB, and the EDB to work in collaboration with the MTRCL and the ETU Hong Kong to press ahead with the project. Cyberport is another landmark INT community in Hong Kong. Cyberport has accumulated a number of technology enterprises and incubated 5 unicorns, covering the areas of fintech, smart living, and digital entertainment. It is estimated that for every $1 invested by Cyberport, an external investment of $13 will be attracted. Over the past 3 years, the startups in Cyberport have also attracted investment of over $12.5 billion. The Cyberport 5 project, which increased the gross floor area of Cyberport by more than 40% within 4 years, has commenced. In the long run, the proposed upgrading of the Hong Shui Kiu Ha Chin as the Anti-North Modern Services Center under the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy will be expanded to include Lau Fau Shan. Consideration may be given to the building of landmark INT facilities with a scale comparable to Cyberport at a location facing Tianhai on the other side of the Shenzhen Bay. We are studying ways to expedite the construction of HSITP in the loop. Furthermore, the work related to One Zone 2 parks in the Shenzhen-Hong Kong INT Cooperation Zone is making good progress. In the long run, under the development strategy, the HSITP and the areas around Lok Ma Chau Santin will be consolidated to form the Santin Technopole, where land for INT-ready use is estimated to amount to about 240 hectares. This, together with the Shenzhen INT Zone, will form the Shenzhen-Hong Kong INT Cooperation Zone of approximately 540 hectares, combining the strengths of both Hong Kong and Shenzhen to pool local and non-local talents, and becoming an essential propeller for the development of an international INT hub in the GBA. Our strong research capabilities have all along been well recognized, both nationally and internationally. To date, Hong Kong has 16 state-key laboratories, 6 Hong Kong branches of Chinese National Engineering Research Centers, and 22 joint laboratories with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. In recent years, the central government has made available quite a number of national research and development projects and funding schemes to researchers in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is blessed with a wealth of talents, with 5 world top 100 universities and many scholars and experts winning top international and national research awards. To consolidate Hong Kong's leading position in basic research, I have accepted in principle the proposals of Hong Kong U and CUHK to provide the 2 universities with land for research use, including reserving a 4-hectare site currently zoned green belt at Pok Fu Lam for Hong Kong U to construct facilities for deep technology research, as well as supporting CUHK to use a 2.5-hectare site in the vicinity of CUHK Medical Center, mainly zoned government institution or community to build research facility and expand a medical center, and at the same time improving the existing public transport interchange and parking facilities at the University Station of the Israel Line. We also support the Hong Kong Polytechnic U in exploring the site of its Hong Kong Bay campus, which is currently used for self-financing post-secondary education for academic and research development. The government will continue to promote reindustrialization with a five-pronged approach, namely infrastructure, talents, capital, technology, and research, so as to make our industrial value chain more complete and our economy more diversified. The Advanced Manufacturing Center at Zhang Guanhou Industrial Estate and the Microelectronics Center at Yuen Long Industrial Estate will be completed in the middle of next year and in 2023, respectively. The good industry response to these facilities indicates that many enterprises share the view that high-value-added and technology-intensive manufacturing processes and production lines can be set up in Hong Kong. In view of this, I've invited HKSTPC to start planning for the construction of the second advanced manufacturing center. Hong Kong has a solid foundation to develop into a global research collaboration hub. As a flagship project, the HK research clusters have already attracted world-class universities and research institutes to collaborate with the local universities to set up 28 research laboratories. During my recent visit to some of these laboratories, I was impressed by the passion and perseverance of the research teams in pursuing technological breakthroughs and innovative business opportunities. I strongly believe these laboratories and talents can help Hong Kong scale new heights in R&D development and further consolidate our position as a hub for global research collaboration. Looking ahead, with the emphasis of the 14th Five-Year Plan on frontier fields such as life and health disciplines, I believe that Hong Kong should better leverage its strengths in life and health sciences to meet the country's needs. We have a solid foundation in research and a good number of world-renowned experts whose achievements have been widely acclaimed. Our clinical trial centers are recognized by the National Medical Products Administration, and the data which meet the relevant clinical trial standards are also widely recognized by relevant bodies in the United States and the European Union. And I propose the setting up of an InnoLife Health Tech Hub in the HSITP in the Loop. With the 16 life and health-related laboratories in the Inno-Hong Kong research clusters and the 8 state key laboratories in life and health disciplines as the basis to focus on related research work. I know that quite a number of startups and large enterprises in life and health disciplines are interested in gaining a foothold in Hong Kong so as to leverage our strengths in this area and the market potential of the GBA. The Santian Technopole will be able to provide land for the relevant research and advanced manufacturing industries. Clinical data, clinical trials, and drug registration are some of the key areas essential to the development of life and health technology. To this end, I've asked the Food and Health Bureau, the Hospital Authority, and also the Department of Health to conduct a comprehensive review of the current practices. The government's Innovation and Technology Venture Fund co-invests with venture capital funds on a matching basis in local INT startups. So far, ITVF has 11 co-investment partners. The HKSTPC's Corporate Venture Fund and Cyberport's Cyber Macro Fund have expanded the investment coverage to beyond Series A stage. Furthermore, we have deployed 10% of the Future Fund to establish the Hong Kong Growth Portfolio last year for strategic investment in projects with a Hong Kong nexus, with INT being one of the target industries. To complement the existing multiplicity of funding schemes for the development of INT sector and markets, the government will make relevant investments by partnering with suitable private equity firms, focusing on assisting fast-growing INT enterprises, including startups. Besides, the HKSTPC will set up the GBA Inno Express to help nurture startups on all fronts and support enterprises to go global and attract foreign investment. I encourage more enterprises and fund investors to support the INT development in Hong Kong. Over the past years, local universities have established close collaborative relationships with research institutions in the mainland in various research programs, of which many have borne fruit. For instance, we're all proud of the fact that some of the instruments currently used on the Moon and Mars were developed by PolyU, which has actively participated in our nation's space exploration projects. I encourage Hong Kong scientists to continue taking part in these meaningful collaborations in order to contribute to our country. With its geographical advantage, managerial expertise, and vast pool of aviation talents, Hong Kong has over the years established an extensive international aviation network, laying the foundation for the Hong Kong International Airport to become a preeminent international aviation hub. Although the global aviation industry, with Hong Kong being no exception, has been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, I remain confident that our status as an international aviation club could be consolidated and enhanced. The construction of the 3-one-way system to increase capacity is a strategic investment to enhance the competitiveness of the Hong Kong IA. It is also a key infrastructure project to enable a city airport to transform into an airport city. The reclamation of around 650 hectares of land has been largely completed, as have the pavement works for the 3,800-meter third runway. The commissioning of the third runway is targeted for 2022, and the full completion of the third runway system is scheduled for 2024. The Airport Authority Hong Kong is also undertaking various projects to improve the efficiency of the airport and overall passenger experience. It is proceeding at full speed with various high-end logistics projects in view of the rapid development of cross-boundary e-commerce in the region. With the support of the central government and the Guangdong province, I proposed in my policy address last year to leverage the HZMB to strengthen Hong Kong-Zhuhai Airport cooperation, with AHK injecting equity into the Zhuhai Airport on the basis of market principles. While actively following on the equity injection, the Hong Kong SAR government also endeavors to establish a high innovation industrial cluster in Zhuhai in collaboration with the Guangdong province, comprising such fields as aircraft maintenance engineering, manufacturing and distribution of aircraft parts and components, research and aircraft engineering. The Hong Kong International Aviation Academy will also help nurture technical talents for the aviation sectors of Hong Kong, Zhuhai, and the GBA. The cultural industries in Hong Kong have been given a boost of confidence by the 14th Five-Year Plan for its clear support towards Hong Kong developing the East meets West Centre for International Cultural Exchange. The government will seize upon Hong Kong's unique creative atmosphere, where Chinese and Western cultures meet, to position Hong Kong as an Asia's city of culture and creativity. To realize our new cultural positioning, the Hong Kong SAR government will work on 5 directions, namely 1, developing world-class cultural facilities and pluralistic cultural environment; 2, strengthening our connections with overseas arts and culture organizations; 3, enhancing cultural exchange and cooperation with the mainland; 4, leveraging technology; and 5, nurturing talents. To enhance the seal of cultural affairs in Hong Kong SAR and strike for effective coordination and promotion of related cultural and creative industries currently undertaken by different policy bureaus, the Electoral and Society generally supported the setting up of a dedicated culture bureau. Will consider the proposal seriously in the context of reorganizing the government structure mentioned earlier. The overseas economic and trade offices and main offices will also play an important role in promoting cultural industries of Hong Kong. The 14th Five-Year Plan states for the first time to support for Hong Kong to develop the regional IP trading center. The Hong Kong SAR government will implement a series of initiatives to promote the development of IP trading in Hong Kong, including further promoting and developing the regional grant patent system by building up the substantive examination capacity of the intellectual property development, exploring with the main authorities on broadening the scope of application of the Patent Cooperation Treaty to cover the original grant patent system, and extending out the major international IP treaties to Hong Kong. The Hong Kong SAR will also strengthen our IP regime, as well as stepping up promotion, education, and external collaboration. For example, we plan to revive the Copyright Ordinance Amendment exercise by consulting the public on the modernization of the copyright regime in the light of the digital environment, with the target of introducing a bill to amend the Copyright Ordinance in the next term of the LegCo. The government will continue investing in infrastructure and enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. In response to the impact of the epidemic on our economy, we'll also position infrastructure investment as a major counter-cyclical measure in stimulating the economy. In this legislative session, the funding for capital works project approved by the Finance Committee has reached a record high of $220 billion. We expect that the annual capital works expenditure will exceed $100 billion in the coming years. The Development Bureau will continue to implement Construction 2.0 and lead the construction industry to reform by advocating innovation, professionalism, and revitalization so as to uplift the productivity and skill level of the sector, while the use of INT and modular integrated in construction will also be promoted to shorten construction time, reduce manpower, and enhance safety in construction sites, to promote reform of the construction industry and enhance project performance. We're making active preparations for the hosting of International Construction Leaders Summit next year to share experience and formulate strategies with various shareholders. The tourism industry has been hard hit by the pandemic and is still in hardship. Besides providing support to the sector, we also need to get prepared for the recovery of the industry. The current time government has launched various tourism initiatives and measures over the past 4 years. Along the development blueprint for Hong Kong's tourism industry promulgated in 2017, including establishing the Statutory Travel Industry Authority, strengthening efforts in taking forward cultural heritage, green and creative tourism projects, completing a strategic planning for cruise industry development, and facilitating the staging of various events and scenic activities. The government continued to implement various measures to consolidate the position of Hong Kong as a core demonstration zone for multi-destination tourism and an international tourism hub. The relevant works includes deepening cooperation with the GBA sites, establishing the GBA Tourism Board, and attracting more events and scenic activities to Hong Kong through various funding and promotion programs. We'll continue to promote the sustainable development of the agriculture and fishery industry by helping the sectors involved to adopt advanced technology and seize new opportunities. We'll be more proactive in helping the industry to make good use of the Sustainable Fisheries Development Fund and the Sustainable Agricultural Development Fund. The construction of Phase 1 of the Agricultural Park in Kutong South, which is going to be completed by phases starting from the end of this year, will facilitate modernization of farm management. The AFCD is actively promoting smart greenhouse technology and assisting the industry in improving efficiency and making good use of production space through the development of precise and automated hydroponic production technology. On fisheries front, the use of modern deep-sea mariculture is a global trend. AFCD will continue to perform the role of facilitator in taking forward development in this aspect. Hong Kong is a free, open, and diversified economy and a metropolis that attracts talents, organizations, and enterprises of different scales from all over the world. Last year, Hong Kong ranked third globally in foreign direct investment inflows after the US and the mainland, attaching great importance to the business environment of Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government has been maintaining communication with local and foreign chambers of commerce and addressing their concerns. The national security law has been promulgated and implemented for a period of time. According to our observations, the initial concerns of foreign businesses have notably subsided and are now most concerned about the restrictions on cross-border travel. As indicated in the latest annual surveys, the number of business operations in Hong Kong with parent companies overseas or in the mainland, and the number of startups in Hong Kong reached an all-time high of 9,049 and 3,755 respectively this year. It can be seen that our business environment has not been undermined by the impact of the pandemic and the biased reports of Hong Kong's situation by certain Western media. More detailed information is provided in the report on Hong Kong's business environment, a place with unique advantages and unlimited opportunities, published recently for Enterprises reference. The 14th Five-Year Plan supports Hong Kong to strengthen cooperation with the mainland in the areas of trade and INT. In fact, the Hong Kong self-government has established cooperation mechanisms with not only the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, GBA, but also the Pan-Pearl River Delta region, Beijing, Shanghai, Fujian, and Sichuan, respectively, to promote cooperation on multiple fronts. With the support of the central government, we've proceeded with the establishment of a new Hubei Hong Kong high-level cooperation mechanism of the Hubei province. Unlike overseas CTOs, the mainland offices of the Hong Kong self-government have to, on top of promoting trade, facilitating investment, and providing support to Hong Kong businessmen, foster communication exchanges with the mainland provinces and municipalities in various aspects, promote Hong Kong, maintain liaison with Hong Kong people studying, working, and residing in the mainland, etc. I've asked the CMAB to review the role of our mainland offices and the effectiveness of their work in due course and examine the need to retitle these offices so as to better reflect their extensive duties.
跟住係講講房屋同埋土地。
Next, on housing and land. Providing decent accommodation for all is the primary goal of my housing policy. Noting the public concern on the matter, I reviewed the progress and set out my vision on the issue of housing and land during the Chief Executive's question and answer session on the 15th of July this year. In my concluding remarks, I said that the solution to address the housing problem of people in Hong Kong more thoroughly rested not only on quick fixes to deal with current situations, but rather on the determination to sustain land supply as well as the courage to remain steadfast with the policies implemented in face of short-term economic changes or fluctuations in property prices. The current term government has demonstrated just that determination and courage. We revised the public-private housing split from 60-40 to 70-30 in 2018 to further step up our policy efforts in producing more public housing units, and our ongoing efforts in identifying land have also begun to bear fruit. We've identified about 350 hectares of land to produce some 330,000 public housing units for the coming 10-year period from 2022-23 to 2031-32, slightly higher than the figure announced last year, and can meet the estimated public housing demand of around 1,000 units in the coming 10-year period. The Transport and Housing Bureau will provide more details in the Long-Term Housing Strategy Annual Progress Report 2021 to be published at the end of this year. Although the overly long waiting time for PRH allocation is worrying, public housing production in the 5-year tenure of the current term government will in fact reach 96,500 units, an increase of 30,000 units compared to the previous 5-year period. The production of over 300,000 units in the 10 years ahead will be backloaded, with only 1/3 to be delivered within the first 5 years. I've urged the Secretary for Transport and Housing to make every endeavour to compress the construction workflow of the Hong Kong Housing Authority to deliver more units as early as possible. In this connection, the Hong Kong Housing Authority and the Hong Kong Housing Society will adopt the MIC and other innovative construction technology more widely. The Housing Authority will also adopt a new procurement model to suitable projects to allow contractors to undertake design and construction in a bundle, thereby releasing resources for the Housing Department to carry out preliminary design, as well as leveraging the contractor's expertise to further enhance the entire construction workflow. To make good on my promise last year to provide personal steer on housing and land-related work, I've requested the Development Bureau and the Transport and Housing Bureau to submit quarterly reports on all public housing sites for the next 5-year period, that is, from 2027-28 to 2031-32. I will give instructions personally if the time to deliver the sites or the progress of construction is less than satisfactory. On private housing, including railway property developments, we'll strive to secure about 170 hectares of land in the coming 10 years and make available to the market sites for the production of about 100,000 units through land sales or putting up railway property developments for tender. This figure has not taken into account development projects undertaken by the Urban Renewal Authority and other private land development projects. With the government's determination to further streamline the land development process, we are confident that there will be a steady supply of land for private housing development. In addition to newly built units, we rely on the existing yearly recovery of about 8,000 PRH units for allocation to applicants on the waiting list. Taking into account the need for equitable distribution of PRH resources, we consider it imprudent to relaunch the tenants' purchase scheme and allow rental units to become inheritable or sellable assets. It is also difficult to redevelop a large number of aged public housing estates, as the existing tenants have to be rehoused to units that could otherwise be allocated to applicants on the waiting list. I sincerely hope that council members who have advocated these two housing initiatives over the years will understand the situation. The Hong Kong Housing Authority has been reviewing and considering whether individual aged public housing estates should be redeveloped in accordance with their established policies and actual circumstances. Given the availability availability of suitable rehousing resources for Saiwan Estate and Matawai Estate, and their build-back potential of providing more housing units upon redevelopment, I will invite the Housing Authority to conduct a study on the redevelopment of these two about 60-year-old estates under suitable conditions, and with the support of the Development Bureau, to seek to include the adjacent areas into the redevelopment sites so that these two prime urban sites could provide more public housing units to meet public aspirations. Regarding the redevelopment of Tai Hang Sai Estate that has been discussed for years, the Executive Council has given approval recently for the Hong Kong Settlers Housing Corporation Limited and the URA to jointly implement the project on condition that the HKSAR will provide proper rehousing arrangements. According to the plan, the redevelopment project can provide over 3,300 units upon completion, more than double the existing number, including 1,300 units to rehouse existing tenants and 2,000 starter homes units to be provided by the URA. To alleviate the hardship faced by families yet to be allocated with PRH units, the current term government has adopted a new mindset and decided to introduce transitional housing. The provision of transitional housing requires tripartite collaboration among community organizations, the business sector, and the government. Apart from providing timely and adequate accommodation, non-government organizations responsible for the preparatory work and running of transitional housing programs have also introduced measures to promote neighborhood-neutral help and providing employment support, setting a good example for social capital building. The THB has identified sufficient land to provide a targeted 15,000 units as originally pledged, and recently some owners of private land have expressed interest in joining such programs. I now propose the increase in the overall supply of transitional housing to 20,000 units in the coming few years by providing 5,000 additional units and increase the amount of funding to $11.6 billion. In addition, under the cash allowance trial scheme, we have disbursed cash allowances to some 30,000 eligible general applicant households as at the end of August, amounting to about half of the eligible applications received. Subject to passage by Electoral, the ordinance to implement tenancy control on subdivided units will come into operation in January next year, which will provide reasonable and effective protection to tenants in subdivided units. Under the multi-pronged land supply strategy, we're pressing ahead with a number of NDA development projects in new territories and Tung Chung East reclamation work simultaneously. There are views that the government is leaving brownfield sites untouched, that it is reluctant to deal with interests associated with land in the new territories. As a matter of fact, over 50% of brownfield sites have been covered by a number of development projects. Over the past 2 years, the government has resumed 90 hectares of land in the new territories for development by applying the Lands Resumption Ordinance, much more than the 20 hectares resumed over the past 5 years. Looking ahead, as many as 700 hectares of land is expected to be resumed by the government in the coming few years. The land sharing pilot scheme, which aims to use the planning resources of the private sector to unleash the development potential of private land in the new territories, primarily for public housing development, is another measure to consolidate and develop land in the new territories. The Development Bureau is processing 3 such applications involving 23 hectares of private land and 17,850 proposed units, of which 70% are for public housing. We adhere firmly to the principle of optimizing land use. For example, with the concerted effort of the Housing Society and relevant departments, the number of public housing units made available by redevelopment of the 3 urban squatted areas in Chua Kuan Ling, Ao Chi Wan, and Chuk Yuen United Village has increased substantially from 6,300 to 8,700, and the intake will commence progressively from 2029 onwards. To ensure a sustainable land supply beyond the next 10 years, we're actively pressing ahead with the relevant studies on the reclamation for Kao Yi Chau artificial islands and various development areas in the new territories north. As for nearshore reclamation, the Development Bureau will conduct studies on the Long Kutan reclamation and replanning of Tumen West area. Our target is to seek funding approval from Electoral in the first half of next year to kickstart the planning and engineering study. We will look into different development options before deciding the way forward. The government will also revive the Ma Liu Shui reclamation project to provide land mainly for INT uses. In addition, we're carrying out a series of projects to relocate government facilities to cave-ins, and it is expected that starting from 2027, more than 40 hectares of land will be released progressively for housing and other beneficial uses. Subject to the studies and assuming a domestic plot ratio of 4 to 6.5, the ongoing large-scale projects and projects on the planning are expected to provide about 400,000 to 500,000 public and private housing units in the medium to long term. Together with the 165,000 to 186,000 units that can be built on the newly identified land under the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy, the supply of housing units can go up to 565,000 to 686,000 units in a period of 10 to 15 years after 2031-32. We cannot avoid the question of how much land Hong Kong lacks, as the projected shortfall will guide our spatial development strategy. The Secretary for Development will later announce the final report of the Hong Kong 2030 Plus. The updated study duly presents the opportunities brought to Hong Kong by the multiple strategic planning initiatives of our country, the future economic and social needs of Hong Kong, as well as public expectations on the living environment. The final projections suggest that from 2019 to 2048, Hong Kong will have a shortfall of around 3,000 hectares of land. Through successful implementation of various NDAs and reclamation projects, as well as taking forward the Northern Metropolis initiatives, we are confident that we'll be able to meet the shortfall of land in the medium to long term. Meanwhile, we'll speed up land supply by implementing the following measures. This is especially so for the medium to long term. 1. Conducting a further review of the Greenbelt zone. Of the 210 sites being rezoned progressively, about 30% involve Greenbelt zone, which, however, account for only 2% of Hong Kong's 16,000 hectares of land zoned Greenbelt. Given the lower ecological value of many sites zoned Greenbelt as compared with the country parks, the development potential of these Greenbelt sites could be further reviewed. The Planning Department will conduct a new round of systematic review on the Greenbelt zone with emphasis on sites on steeper slopes as well as those located farther away from built-up areas. It is anticipated that the screening work will be completed in the middle of next year and technical studies will commence thereafter. As regards the development of wetlands and wetland buffer areas, it will be dealt with under the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy. 2. Unlocking Zhou Tong lands in the new territories. Despite the absence of official statistics, there is a considerable number of Zhou Tong lands in the new territories that can be used for development. During the policy address consultation sessions, I received quite some views suggesting that the government should relax the sale restrictions of Zhou Tong lands through amendments to the new territories ordinance and provide a reasonable mechanism for addressing issues arising from vacancies of Zhou Tong managers. I agree that to pragmatically break the current impasse in developing Zhou Tong lands, we may consider amending the new territories ordinance on the premise that the Zhou Tong tradition should be respected and the legitimate interests of Zhou Tong members be protected. To this end, the Secretary for Home Affairs will set up a working group with Hang Yi Kok new territories to conduct a review and work out specific amendment proposals within a year in collaboration with the Development Bureau and other relevant departments. 3. Extending the standardization of land premium assessment to the land in the new territories. With a positive response of the market and the sector to the pilot scheme for charging land premium at standard rates for the redevelopment of industrial buildings, 4 redevelopment projects have accepted the premium assessment based on standard rates so far. The Development Bureau will extend the approach of using standard rates for premium assessment to in-situ land exchange applications in NDAs under the enhanced conventional new town approach. The Development Bureau and the Lands Department will work out the details of a scheme which is targeted for launch in the first quarter of next year. 4. Extending the implementation period of 2 existing measures for revitalizing industrial buildings to October 2024, which include relaxing the plot ratio for redevelopment of old industrial buildings and exempting the waiver fees chargeable for wholesale conversion. As for land sharing pilot scheme, we encourage interested parties to submit their applications as early as possible before the deadline in May 2023. The process of developing land for housing construction involves various statutory and administrative measures, ranging from technical studies, planning permissions, detailed design of works gazettal, public objection handling, funding, application, land resumption, rehousing and compensation, land formation, and provision of infrastructure. There is a need for each of the above provisions. None of them should be abandoned lightly. That said, in order to speed up land and housing supply, the Development Bureau is spearheading the compression of workflow of land development with relevant departments. I have requested the Development Bureau to review the existing statutory procedures and administrative arrangements on town planning, environmental impact assessment, land resumption, and road works in a more thorough and comprehensive manner. We plan to put forward proposals to the Electoral and other stakeholders to gauge their views in the first half of next year and to seek to introduce legislative amendments within the same year. The Environment Bureau will also streamline and enhance the public-private partnership arrangements under the new nature conservation policy to better balance development and conservation. Next, on building a livable city. During my 5-year tenure as the Secretary for Development, I and my colleagues outlined our vision for a quality city, and we have been working towards its realization since then. Under innovative policies such as conserving Central, revitalizing historic buildings through partnership scheme, and energizing Kowloon East, we have adopted a place-making approach to promote urban development, urban renewal, heritage conservation, harbourfront enhancement, as well as landscaping and greening, and our efforts have borne fruit. Though Hong Kong still faces various issues, including a shortage of land for housing, traffic congestion, and aging buildings, these challenges should not hinder our determination to build a quality living environment for our people. At the same time, Hong Kong must put words into action in addressing the crisis of extreme weather brought about by global climate change. As carbon dioxide is a major culprit in climate change, our country and many parts of the world have pledged to draw up timetables and roadmaps for decarbonization. Hong Kong is no exception. As announced in my policy address last year, Hong Kong would strive to achieve carbon neutrality before 2050. The Steering Committee on Climate Change and Carbon Neutrality, chaired by me, will formulate the overall strategy and oversee the coordination of various actions. The Hong Kong Climate Action Plan 2050, to be announced shortly by the Secretary for the Environment, will set out more proactive strategies and measures on reducing carbon emissions to attain carbon neutrality, and will pursue more vigorous interim decarbonization targets to reduce Hong Kong's carbon emissions by 50% before 2035 as compared to the 2005 level. To oversee the effective implementation of all these actions, the ENB will set up the Office of Climate Change and Carbon Neutrality to strengthen coordination and promote decarbonization. Also, a dedicated advisory committee will be formed to offer advice and promote active participation of major stakeholders, including young people. About 2/3 of Hong Kong's greenhouse gas emissions come from electricity generation, followed by 18% from the transport sector and 7% from waste. Our decarbonization efforts must target these three sources, with net zero carbon emissions for electricity generation, zero carbon emissions from the transport sector, and achieving carbon neutrality on waste management as the ultimate goals. In order to achieve net zero carbon emissions for electricity generation before 2050, we must first change the fuel mix of local power plants. Our interim target is to cease using coal for daily electricity generation by 2035. This is not a remote target, as the share of coal has already been reduced to less than 1/4 in the fuel mix for electricity generation. Power companies must continue to phase down coal-fired generation units and replace the use of coal with other alternatives such as natural gas and renewable energy for electricity generation. The government will grapple with Hong Kong's geographical and environmental constraints in driving the development of renewable energy and strive to increase its share in the fuel mix for electricity generation through facilitating local projects, regional collaboration, and joint ventures, etc. Another strategy to achieve net zero carbon emissions for electricity generation is to reduce energy demand. At present, buildings account for 90% of the electricity consumption in Hong Kong. Promoting green buildings, improving energy efficiency of buildings, and stepping up the efforts to lead a low-carbon lifestyle will reduce the demand for power consumption and generation and lessen the financial burden on the public due to the increased use of clean fuels for electricity generation. Our goal is to reduce the electricity consumption of commercial buildings by 30% to 40%, and that of residential buildings by 20% to 30% from the 2015 level by 2050. We hope to achieve half of the above targets by 2035. The development of green transport helps improve air quality and is vital to achieving zero carbon emissions in the transport sector. The government announced the Hong Kong roadmap on popularization of electric vehicles early this year to put forward various measures, including seizing new registration of fuel-propelled and hybrid private cars in 2035 or earlier, and announcing the strategies and targets for installing charging facilities. We will proactively promote the development of electric and other new energy public transport and commercial commercial vehicles, including working with franchise bus companies to conduct trials of hydrogen fuel cell buses with a view to formulating a specific roadmap and timetable for the use of new energy public transport in 2025. As for carbon emissions from waste, we will step up our efforts in mobilizing the entire community to practice waste reduction, developing waste-to-energy facilities, and supporting the circular economy in accordance with the Waste Blueprint for Hong Kong 2035 unveiled by the government early this year. Climate change represents both a challenge and an opportunity. In the next 15 to 20 years, the government will devote about $240 billion to take forward various measures on climate change mitigation and adaptation. Substantial resources from the private sector will also be necessary to achieve low-carbon transformation. Green economy transformation has become a world trend. As an international financial center with a huge financial market and a robust world-class regulatory framework, Hong Kong draws in world-leading financial and professional institutions, green assessment and certification organizations, as well as international investors. With these capabilities and advantages, we're well placed to develop our country into our city into the regional green finance hub. By serving as a premier financing platform for green enterprises and projects, we have a significant role to play in addressing climate change. The passage of legislation on municipal solid waste charging by Electoral in August this year is an important milestone in Hong Kong's waste reduction work. We'll embark on preparatory work for the implementation of MSW charging, which includes strengthening support for community recycling of resources, increasing collection points, and enhancing service efficiency of community recycling network. We'll also make good use of smart technologies. The government has rolled out central collection services for food waste and waste plastics on a pilot basis. Now efforts have begun to bear fruit. We'll soon expand the two pilot schemes to extend the territorial coverage and service targets. To complement the upstream collection of recyclables, we'll further promote the development of downstream waste-to-energy and waste-to-resources infrastructure to gradually reduce our reliance on landfills. For enhanced synergy, I've asked the Environmental Protection Department to take over the management of refuse collection points and household refuse collection services from the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department so as to bring the collection, recycling, delivery and treatment of waste under the same umbrella. Our current urban renewal strategy places emphasis on both redevelopment and rehabilitation. Apart from acquisition, demolition and redevelopment of aged buildings by the URA developers, the current time government has allocated over $19 billion in total to subsidize owners of aged buildings to maintain and repair their properties. However, with the rapid aging of buildings, the number of private buildings aged 50 years or above has surged from 3,900 to 8,600 over the past decade. Coupled with the dilapidation of more than 5,003 new buildings across the territory, we must adopt more effective policy measures to expedite the pace of redevelopment and renewal. We will adopt a multi-pronged approach. First, based on the recently completed Yau Mong district study, the URA will step up urban renewal with an innovative and district-based approach for Yau Ma Tei and Mong Kok, including piloting planning tools such as transfer of plot ratio and street consolidation in suitable redevelopment projects. Such tools will also be applicable to privately led redevelopment projects in other districts where appropriate. Second, I will invite the URA to commence similar district planning studies on old districts of Tsuen Wan and Sham Shui Po with a view to formulating renewal plans for these two districts. Third, we will explore ways to lower the compulsory sale thresholds under the Land Compulsory Sale for Redevelopment Ordinance to expedite redevelopment of aged buildings. During the process, the Development Bureau will give due consideration to factors such as minority owners' interests and building conditions and gauge the views of stakeholders. In my policy address last year, I put forward the Invigorating Island South initiative. The Development Bureau set up the Invigorating Island South office in February this year and formulated the first conceptual master plan to gauge local views on beautifying, revitalizing, and greening Wong Chuk Hang, Aberdeen, and Ablai Chau areas. In tandem, we're taking forward several minor works projects in the areas to improve pedestrian connectivity at the waterfront, thereby enhancing the vibrancy of the district. These include a green link connecting MTR, Wong Chuk Hang Station and Aberdeen Country Park, which will commence works next year. Following the official opening of the Water World of Ocean Park, the government and the Ocean Park Corporation are actively taking forward the future strategy for Ocean Park, including conducting a tendering exercise to identify partners for the development of the park, commencing the technical studies for the proposed pier projects at Deepwater Bay and Tai Shua next year, and exploring the feasibility of providing temporary landing facilities prior to the completion of the pier projects for better connection between the park and other areas through the water bodies and water transport. In addition, the government is inviting a non-government partner to design, construct and operate a water sports complex for the general public at the rehabilitated Sheko Quarry site through open tender, including providing windsurfing elite training facilities for the exclusive use of the Hong Kong Sports Institute. It is expected that the tender will be awarded in the first quarter of next year, with a target of bringing the water sports complex into full operation in about 5 years. Besides, we're studying the technical feasibility of the redevelopment and consolidation of the existing sports ground, sports centre, recreation ground and swimming pool facilities in Wong Chuk Hang, with a view to optimizing the use of existing land under the single-site multiple-use model and providing better services to the community. We'll also commence an investigation and design study on the expansion of the Aberdeen Diving Shelter next year to provide more vessel berthing area. The government has been striving to enhance the harbourfront on both sides of the Victoria Harbour. Through the collaborative efforts with the Harbourfront Commission, a total of 15 harbourfront sites will have been opened within the period from October last year to the end of this year, further extending the promenade along the Victoria Harbour to 25 kilometres. Also, the management mode of harbourfront shared space adopted on a trial basis has been well received. We'll continue to implement the open management approach in more harbourfront sites for the public to freely enjoy the harbourfront space in an inclusive environment. Besides, we will adopt a completely fence-free, step-down, water-edge design for the first time at the Victoria Harbour to enable visitors to sit by the sea and enjoy an unobstructed view of the beautiful Victoria Harbour. Many of us have a special affection for the Victoria Harbour. With the endeavours of the government over the past few years, the harbourfront has become a prime public space. In recent years, there have been views saying that the protection of the harbourfront or protection of the harbour ordinance should be amended. I have no objection to reviewing the ordinance, which has been implemented for more than 2 decades, but I believe that the purpose of any amendment to the said legislation should be to improve connectivity of the harbourfront and increase public space, and not for reclamation to provide land for sale or housing development. The Secretary for Development will commence discussion on the matter in due course. Cycling has become popular outdoor activity in recent years. The 60-kilometre cycle track connecting Tuen Mun and Mang On Shan and the 2-kilometre cycle track and Tsuen Wan waterfront were opened in September last year and July this year, respectively. They are well received by the public. Continued efforts will be made to take forward the construction works of the remaining track of about 20 kilometers between Tsuen Mun and Tsuen Wan, so as to complete the cycle track network connecting eastern and western New Territories. As for the urban area, the 13-kilometre greenway for shared use by pedestrians and cyclists in the Kai Tak development area will be completed in phases from 2023 onwards. Rapid progress has been made since the launch of 5G services last year, with network coverage now topping 90% and even up to 99% in core business districts. According to a report by an international market survey institution this year, Hong Kong ranks first and second in the world in terms of 5G coverage and stability, respectively, bringing vast potential for various commercial services and smart city applications. The government will promote 5G development on various fronts, including releasing more 5G spectrum for auctioning by the end of this month to satisfy the needs of various 5G services in terms of speed, capacity, and coverage. Through the subsidy scheme for encouraging early deployment of 5G, we will subsidize more sectors to boost efficiency and productivity by adopting innovative 5G applications such as telemedicine, distance maintenance support, and real-time safety monitoring in construction sites. Smart mobility is another key initiative to promote smart city development. The Transport Department will progressively implement the free-flow tolling system at government toll tunnels and the Chengsha control area from the end of next year. The system will bring convenience to motorists and improve tunnel traffic. Of the 7 automated parking system projects, those in Tsuen Wan and Tai Po will be commissioned this year and next year, respectively. To promote autonomous vehicles, the Transport and Housing Bureau will submit a bill to the next term of Electoral on the establishment of a new regulatory framework for autonomous vehicles to enable wider and more flexible trial and use. In addition, the Smart Traffic Fund was launched in March this year to provide funding support to projects that enhance commuting convenience for motorists, increase transport efficiency, and improve driving safety. The Hong Kong-China delegation staged a distinguished performance at the Tokyo Olympic Games, achieving the best results in Hong Kong's history and making all Hong Kong people proud. Hong Kong athletes have also done a great job in the events at the Paralympic Games with remarkable and encouraging results. The success of Hong Kong athletes has not come about by chance. In addition to their own efforts and the support of different sectors, the government's policy directives and an allocation of resources are also indispensable. To further support the development of elite sports, I announced earlier that we will expedite the construction of new facilities building of the Hong Kong Sports Institute. With funding approval by Electoral, we will seek to complete the works in mid-2024. We will also finance jointly with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust the setting up of a $300 million special fund to enhance, through research in sports science and sports medicine, the competitiveness of athletes in international sports events. Furthermore, the government will continue to provide support for retired athletes, including athletes with disabilities. This year, more than 70 retired athletes have joined the Retired Athletes Transformation Program, which was launched in 2018. They are employed by eligible schools and sports organizations to assist in promoting sports and identifying potential sports talents. We will allocate more resources to expand the program. The target is to double the number of retired athletes joining the program within 5 years to provide them with more opportunities for career transformation. In addition to policy objectives of supporting elite sports, maintaining Hong Kong as a center for major international sports events, and promoting sports in the community, we will explore ways to further promote sports development in Hong Kong through enhanced professionalism in sports sector and development of sports industry. The commissioning of the Kai-Tak Sports Parks in 2023 and opportunities arising from Greater Bay Area will foster more diversified development in sports and provide young people as well as retired athletes with job and development opportunities. A working group chaired by the Secretary for Home Affairs will discuss with the business and sports sector on how to further support the development of the sports industry in Hong Kong and submit a report to me in due course. I'm grateful for the trust and support of the central government in allowing Guangdong, Hong Kong and Macau to host the 15th National Games in 2025. We'll spare no effort to work closely with the relevant ministries of the central government, the governments of Guangdong Province and Macau SAR to organize a simple, safe and wonderful 15th National Games. Our cultural sector is thrilled by the support for Hong Kong as stated in the 14th Five-Year Plan to develop into an East-Meets-West Centre for International Cultural Exchange. The flagship projects of the West Kowloon Cultural District, namely the M+ Museum, the Hong Kong Palace Museum and the Lyric Theatre Complex, as well as the East Kowloon Cultural Centre under the LCSD and the Kai-Tak Sports Park, which can also stage cultural performances, will be completed successfully in the coming years. With these new cultural landmarks and the 5 major policy directions I mentioned earlier to support cultural development, the vision of developing Hong Kong into a cultural metropolis will soon be realized. This will definitely offer a unique experience with a blend of Chinese and Western cultures and a fruitful cultural journey for locals and visitors.
Now I turn to how we improve people's livelihood. As reflected in the allocation of resources, the current term government is committed to building a caring community and looking after the underprivileged. Recurrent expenditure on social welfare has significantly increased from $65.3 billion in 2017-18 to $105.7 billion in 2021-22, an increase of 62% over 4 years. It is the biggest expenditure item among different policy areas, accounting for about 20% of the overall current government expenditure. In the face of the uncertainties in our economic outlook and serious fiscal deficits, the government will focus on implementation of planned policy initiatives in the year ahead and renew the effectiveness from time to time to ensure that needy citizens can benefit. The wealth gap issue in Hong Kong is the community's primary concern. It is the responsibility of the government to take care of those in need by providing a social safety net through income redistribution. According to statistics released at the end of last year, the size of the poor population in 2019, after taking into account all the cash and public housing benefits decreased significantly from the pre-intervention 1.49 million to 0.64 million. This shows that the safety net has effectively achieved the function of income redistribution by providing concrete support for the grassroots and lifting them out of poverty. The setting of a poverty line for Hong Kong based on the concept methodology of relative poverty, which only measures income without considering assets, was advocated by me as chairman of the Commission on Poverty in my capacity as the Chief Secretary for Administration. The objective is to monitor the poverty situation and alleviate poverty with targeted efforts through regular data collection and analysis. Past analysis show that elderly and working poor households are two groups requiring special attention, and PRH is the most effective poverty alleviation measure. As such, there are views that poverty problem of Hong Kong is in fact a housing problem. Besides expediting the development of PRH, the current term government has significantly improved cash welfare over the past few years. First, the introduction of the higher old-age living allowance has enabled some 570,000 elderly persons, including those with owner-occupied property or living with income-earning family members, to receive a higher monthly allowance of $3,850. Second, enhancements to the Working Family Allowance Scheme have substantially increased the rates of allowances, relaxed eligibility criteria, thus allowing a four-person household of two children, which has an income of not exceeding $22,400, to receive a maximum monthly allowance of $4,200. Third, a series of measures to improve the comprehensive Social Security allowance assistance have been implemented, including substantially increasing the rent allowance and relaxing the eligibility for a range of special grants. As a result of the implementation of these three initiatives and other improvement measures, the total recurrent expenditure on cash welfare has increased to $67.4 billion in 2022, which is 56% higher than that in 2017-18. The government's poverty alleviation strategies will focus on four areas in future. First, we'll continue to lift needy elderly out of poverty by providing cash welfare, including the CSSA and the OALA. We'll merge the normal and higher OALA in the second half of next year so that the more lenient asset limits of the normal OALA will be adopted across the board, and eligible applicants will receive payment at the higher OALA rate. Second, we'll continue to develop the economy, providing training and retraining, encouraging employment, and provide financial support for working households with low incomes, particularly those with children, through the WFA scheme. Third, we'll vigorously speed up PRH construction, build more transitional housing, and provide cash allowances to eligible PRH applicants who have been waiting for PRH for more than 3 years. Fourth, under the principle of shared responsibility, we'll strengthen MPF retirement protection. The priority task is to take forward the abolition of the offsetting arrangement by introducing legislative amendments in the next legislative year. We'll also endeavor to lower the management costs of MPF by implementing the eMPF platform at full steam and put in place a measure of government paying MPF contributions for low-income workers. Furthermore, we'll explore ways to better encourage the public to convert their one-off assets under MPF into an annuity, which they can receive on a regular basis after retirement, so as to provide a steady income for the elderly. Apart from welfare measures in the form of cash subsidies, the current term government has substantially increased the recurrent expenditure on elderly services by 85% and that on rehabilitation services by 66%. Notwithstanding this, the demand for subsidized residential care services has exceeded supply due to an aging population. We must boost the short, medium, and long-term supply of residential care services through a multi-pronged approach, including buying more places from private residential care homes, requiring private developers through conditions in suitable land sale projects to build specified welfare facilities, developing welfare facilities on government sites in respect of suitable public housing project in future, setting aside premises equivalent to above 5% of the total GFA for welfare purposes. Meanwhile, we'll continue to increase the service places for daycare and home care services to enable the elderly and persons with disabilities to age in place and live with their families. To facilitate our elderly people to retire in the mainland, the government will explore the extension of the residential care services scheme in Guangdong to cover other eligible residential care homes for the elderly in mainland cities of the GBA, and the relaxation of the one-year continuous residence in Hong Kong regarding applications of the OLA and the OH allowance. We have successively implemented a number of measures to strengthen strengthen childcare services, which include the incorporation of the planning ratios for aided childcare services into the Hong Kong Planning Centre's guidelines, the provision of more childcare service places, the introduction of childcare centre parent subsidy, and the regularization measures to improve the fee waiving subsidy scheme for after-school care program. And the year ahead, our pro-child efforts will focus on two areas. First, we must take action immediately to prevent child abuse strategies from happening again. Upon consultation with stakeholders, we are formulating a legislative proposal to provide for a mandatory reporting mechanism on child abuse cases. Training for practitioners and relevant possessions to identify child abuse cases will be enhanced at the same time. Our target is to introduce a relevant bill into the next SLAG code for scrutiny as soon as possible. Second, we will further increase the number of places that on-site preschool rehabilitation services from 9,000 this year to 10,000 in 2022 school year. With the gradual increase of service places, the policy objective of zero waiting time can be achieved in the foreseeable future. The current time government has implemented a number of measures to promote women's development. These measures include extending statutory maternity leave to 14 weeks, strengthening childcare services, providing more baby care rooms in government premises, and amending legislation to make discrimination against and harassment of breastfeeding illegal. I'm also pleased to say that efforts in promoting women's participation in public affairs and my term of office are gradually bearing fruit. The percentage of female members in advisory and statutory bodies has reached 35% in June this year, meeting targets set in early years. The government places great emphasis on creating an equitable and caring society for our culturally diverse groups. The current term government has implemented around 30 measures to enhance support for ethnic minorities, covering the areas of education, employment support, healthcare, social welfare, and social inclusion. As a next step, the government will set an example by taking the lead in providing ethnic minorities with more employment opportunities. The current term government has made an all-out effort to respond to long-standing demands for the labour sector, with extended statutory maternity leave to 14 weeks, with the government subsidizing the additional 4 weeks of maternity leave pay. From next year onwards, we also increase progressively the number of statutory holidays to 17 days to bring them on par with general holidays. We've acted resolutely to abolish the offsetting arrangement under the MPF system. We're going to introduce a relevant bill into the Council in the next legislative year. We've also attached great importance to occupational safety and health. We are preparing to raise the relevant penalties through legislative amendment. Moreover, we'll launch a pilot rehabilitation program for employees injured at work next year to help injured employees recover and return to work early. With our anti-epidemic efforts extended over the past 21 months, all confirmed COVID-19 patients have received timely and proper treatment in hospitals. This is an extraordinary achievement which demonstrates the remarkable efficiency, professionalism, and high adaptability of the healthcare system in Hong Kong. That said, there are still inadequacies in the healthcare system. We need to make improvements in multiple aspects in order to tackle the challenges posed by our healthcare services by an aging population. Among these, there is a pressing need to vigorously improve the development of primary healthcare services and foster medical-social collaboration. I've advocated as early as my 2017 PA the setting up of district health centres with a brand new operation mode to promote primary healthcare to relieve the pressure on the HA. After years of hard work, we have and are going to set up DHCs in Kwai Ching, Sam Shui Po, Wong Tai Shin, Tuen Mun, Southern District, and Yuen Long, and DHC expresses have been set up in another 11 districts. In parallel, the FHB has proceeded with a comprehensive review on planning of primary healthcare services and governance framework to formulate a blueprint for the sustainable development of primary healthcare services in Hong Kong. Enhancement of medical-social collaboration will be a critical part of this review. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented exceptional challenges to public health authorities around the world. Hong Kong is no exception. We take stock of the progress made over the past 3 months and consolidate our experience in combating the epidemic. We'll also consider strengthening the core functions of the DH in formulating and implementing public health strategies, as well as monitoring and facilitating the development of health technology and the research and development of drugs so as to enhance its capability to cater for the future development of society and public health. The government has adopted a multi-pronged approach to enhance healthcare manpower, including increasing continuously the local healthcare training places offered by UGC-funded universities and self-financing institutions, and admitting non-locally trained healthcare professionals with a view to supporting the development of various healthcare services. The healthcare system in Hong Kong is renowned for its quality and reliability. Nevertheless, just like other advanced economies, our healthcare system is facing many challenges, including an aging population, increasing number of diseases triggered by lifestyle, and rising public expectations towards healthcare services. To cope with these challenges, sufficient healthcare manpower is a must. While the number of locally trained places for healthcare professionals will be increased, Electoral has completed the scrutiny of the Revenue Amendment Bill to enable qualified non-locally trained doctors to practice in Hong Kong, thereby increasing our overall manpower supply of doctors. In addition, we have to strengthen the roles of other healthcare professionals in the local healthcare system, especially in the primary healthcare setting. The FHB will follow up with the statutory boards and councils of various healthcare professions on the recommendations and a report of the strategic review on healthcare manpower planning and professional development promulgated in 2017, including proposing legislative amendments to allow patients to have direct access to healthcare professional services such as physiotherapy and occupational therapy without a doctor's referral, so as to avoid delay in treatment. Furthermore, to enhance the professional competency of healthcare personnel, we'll legislate to make continuing professional education and/or continuous professional development a mandatory requirements of supplementary medical professionals during the relevant ordinance, as well as nurses and dentists. Drawing on the experience in implementing the ongoing voluntary accredited registers schemes for healthcare professions, the FHB will also explore the feasibility of introducing a statutory registration regime for those healthcare professionals who are currently not subject to any statutory registration requirements, such as clinical psychologists, speech therapists, and dietitians, with a view to protecting public interest. Having affirmed the positioning of Chinese medicine in the development of medical services in Hong Kong, the government has rolled out various measures, including the construction of the Chinese Medicine Hospital and the Government Chinese Medicines Testing Institute, the provision of government-subsidized outpatient services and integrated Chinese Western medicine inpatient services, and the establishment of Chinese Medicine Development Fund. To promote the long-term development of Chinese medicine sector, the government will explore empowering Chinese medicine practitioners to prescribe diagnostic imaging such as X-ray and laboratory tests for their patients. Talent is the most important element of the future development of Hong Kong, and education is the key to nurturing talents. During my term of office, I have proactively realizing my vision for education, i.e., nurturing our young people into quality citizens with a sense of national identity and social responsibility and affection for Hong Kong, as well as an international perspective. I've also delivered my electoral promise providing additional resources for education. However, as a minority of our students have been deluded and radicalized to take part in illegal acts and even participate in organizing extreme political activities, we must pay more attention to the sense of national identity, values, and civic mindedness of our next generation. A nation will prosper when its young people thrive. The role of a government in education for a nation and region is not merely a provider of resources, but also a policymaker, administrator, and regulator. To enhance the quality of education, I've always heeded advice of stakeholders in the sector and have asked EDB to conduct in-depth reviews on 8 areas of education to come up with recommendations on how our education system can be improved. I'm glad to see that the EDB is working with schools monitoring bodies, schools, and revenue institutions on the implementation of the recommendations. Meanwhile, the EDB must also safeguard the well-being of students by effectively monitoring and following on any issues that involve school management and the conduct of teachers with a view to restoring Hong Kong's educational order. The current time government has devoted substantial resources to early childhood education with the aim of providing highly affordable and good quality education, kindergarten education to all children, irrespectively of the family background. Currently, as many as 90% of the half-day KG and joining the kindergarten education scheme free of charge will further enhance the professional development of teachers, reinforce the support to students with diverse needs, strengthen the quality assurance framework, promote parent education, etc., view to improving the quality of education. For Chinese people, family always comes first. Our parents, irrespective of their education background, teach us to respect our elders, love our siblings, be kind to our neighbors, and abide by the rules. These are the values parents would like their children to hold on to. I believe that the educational function of families is an integral part of a civilized society, and parents' influence on the children is irreplaceable. The EDB will continue to support various initiatives for reinforcing homeschool cooperation and promoting parent education. Regarding basic education, to better cater for learning and growth of students, small class teaching has been implemented in the vast majority of the public sector primary schools. An improvement to teacher-to-class ratio as well as enhancement of non-teaching staff support have also been made to public sector primary and secondary schools so the teachers can focus on teaching. The current time government has shown its utmost sincerity and support for teachers by implementing in one go the all-graduate teaching force policy in public sector primary and secondary schools starting from the 2019-20 school year. I hope that the teaching force will perform its mission of nurturing talents, equip themselves to keep abreast of social developments and demand for talents, and help students students lay a solid foundation for learning through basic education in areas like language and reading proficiency, innovative thinking, and developing an interest in science. To provide students with a diversified and flexible progression pathway and enrich their learning opportunities, we've completed a review of school curriculum and implemented measures for optimizing the 4 senior secondary core subjects as secondary 4 from this school year onwards. Also, we've reviewed the Diploma Yijin subsidy scheme to continue to provide an alternative pathway for Air6 school leavers as well as adult learners to obtain formal qualification for the purposes of employment and further study. On vocational and professional education training, will continue to promote applied learning as a valued senior secondary selective subject by developing more diversified and up-to-date courses, as well as placing equal emphasis on practice and theory to cater for the diverse interests of students and facilitate exploration of multiple pathways for further study and career pursuits. The current term government has rolled out various initiatives to ensure that all students attaining 3322 in Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education examination and aspiring to study further will now have access to subsidized undergraduate education. In fact, the post-secondary education of Hong Kong is where our strengths lie. Not only will it nurture local talents for us, but will also contribute to bring a pool of talents for the GBA. I visited 8 UGC-funded universities around July and August this year to understand the latest developments. I'm pleased to learn that the resources invested by the current term government in university research have been creating very positive impacts and outcomes are most encouraging. Take the results of the Research Assessment Exercise 2020 announced by the UGC earlier as an example. About 16,000 research items involving 41 disciplines in 13 areas were assessed by the distinguished overseas and local scholars. Among them, 25% were judged to be well-leading, and a further 45% were judged to be internationally excellent. The research matching grant scheme, which covers a period of 3 years, is due to end in July next year under the original plan. I propose to extend the scheme for another 2 years so that the industrial and commercial sectors can continue to make good use of the scheme to support the research work of the higher education sector. We are committed to catering for students with special education needs. The current term government has doubled the recurring expenditure on integrated education to about $3.6 billion per year, while the recurring expenditure on special education has also increased from about $2.5 billion to about $3.5 billion per year. The allocations not included the provision of the on-site preschool rehabilitation services for preschool children under the LWB. To encourage non-Chinese speaking parents to send their children to local KGs, starting from 2017-18 school year, the EDB has been providing additional subsidy for KGs under the KG education scheme admitting non-Chinese speaking students. What is more important, however, is to assess the effectiveness of this initiative and make adjustments appropriate, in the hope that language will no longer be a barrier for non-Chinese speaking students to integrate into the local community and enter the job market. The child is father to the man. This is particularly true for a person's character and sense of national identity. Education on these attributes must begin from an early age. Students should acquire through education at an early age a correct understanding of the history and culture of our country, as well as the way of the life of its people, including the constitutional order of the HKSAR. Many veteran educators have great expectations of the HKSAR government in making Chinese history an independent compulsory subject of the junior secondary level and revising the curriculum since 2018-19 school year, as well as on the citizenship and social development subject, which has been introduced to replace the liberal studies subject starting from this school year. The EDB will assume monitoring role in this respect. Moral education is an important part of school education. To develop students' positive values and attitudes, EDB has in recent years launched funding programs under the Quality Education Fund to support schools in promoting values education to help students cope with adversities with a positive attitude and develop positive thinking, to safeguard against the adverse effects of disinformation on the Internet, to enhance the media and information literacy of teachers and students, and optimize the use of the QEF to support schools in promoting media and information literacy education, teaching students how to distinguish the authenticity of information, nurturing the critical thinking skills, thereby consolidating values education. Confronting Confronted with the challenges brought by a rapidly aging population and a declining fertility rate, Hong Kong will face a bottleneck in manpower supply. As a small economy, Hong Kong cannot meet the needs of economic development simply by nurturing local talents. We need to attract non-local talents more proactively to enrich our talent pool, promote high-end economic development, and seize the development opportunities as provided under the 14th Five-Year Plan and the GBA. Following the government's announcement last year to double the annual quota under the Quality Migrant Admission Scheme to 2,000 in an attempt to expand the talent pool of Hong Kong, over 1,700 talents from more than a dozen of countries and regions were approved with the quota. I've decided to double the annual quota of the scheme to 4,000 to attract talents from all over the world to work in Hong Kong. The first talent list of Hong Kong was promulgated by the government in 2018. Upon the completion of a review recently, we decided to add the new professions of financial professionals in compliance and asset management and professionals in environmental, social, and governance to the list. We will also expand the scope of some existing professions to include experts of medical and healthcare services, microelectronics, integrated circuit design, and arts technology, and refine the requirements on legal and dispute resolution professionals, with a view to complementing Hong Kong's future policy direction to develop the key areas of finance, INT, arts and culture, as well as dispute resolution services. In addition, through the network of our ETOs and mainland offices, we will assist relevant bureaus in attracting talents to work in Hong Kong. As an international financial center with mutual access to the mainland's capital market, Hong Kong is a huge demand for financial services personnel. The Financial Services and Treasury Bureau will collaborate with EDB and LWB to explore the development of professional qualification standards under the qualifications framework for the fintech sector, so as to provide clearer and recognized professional development pathway for employers and practitioners in the industry. Meanwhile, more courses related to finance will include in the list of reimbursable courses under the Continuing Education Fund to attract more talents to join the industry. The DOJ will introduce a range of measures to attract and retain top legal talents, such as relaxing the qualification requirements and handling international commercial disputes, and clarifying the types of supporting documents required for transactional lawyers. Moreover, the DOJ will regularize the pilot scheme introduced in June last year to allow eligible non-Hong Kong residents to participate in arbitral proceedings in Hong Kong as visitors on a short-term basis without the need to obtain employment visas beforehand. The scheme will strengthen Hong Kong's position as an international center for legal and dispute resolution services in the Asia-Pacific region. Fostering the IP manpower capacity of the private enterprises is the key to developing Hong Kong into an IP trading center. Therefore, the IPD will enhance and organize more training courses under the IP Manager Scheme with a view to assisting SMEs to build up their manpower resources in IP protection management and commercialization. In recent years, the government has been sparing no effort in expanding the INT talent pool. For example, the Global STEM Professorship Scheme proposed in my policy address last year is a huge success. Over 40 distinguished scholars and their research teams from 8 economies recruited in the first tranche are gradually thriving in Hong Kong. We will continue to implement the scheme to attract more renowned INT scholars and their research teams to Hong Kong, such that our local universities will scale new heights in INT research and development activities. To encourage the UGC-funded activities to flexibly deploy resources to nurture more research talent in support of their research activities, the over-enrollment ceiling of UGC-funded research postgraduate program students will be further relaxed from 70% to 100%. Meanwhile, we've already invited the UGC to assess the supply of and demand for UGC-funded postgraduate places and consider the feasibility of increasing the number of funded places. The Hong Kong IAA was established in 2016 with the aim of nurturing aviation management talents from Hong Kong region. Apart from actively collaborating with organizations, including local education and vocational institutions and the International Civil Aviation Organization in offering related training, the HKIA also partnered with the National School of Civil Aviation of France to co-organize the Advanced Master Program in Air Transport Management, which has successfully attracted students from Hong Kong and the Belt and Road Initiative countries. Approval has been given by the Ministry of Education for senior management in the mainland aviation sector to enroll in the Advanced Master Program starting from next year. Talents are the key to arts and cultural excellence. We'll put more emphasis on nurturing talents in different artistic and creative fields, such as arts administration, arts technology, and script writing. In respect of Cantonese opera, we will provide training for young talents and support the continued professional development of practitioners. As for the film industry, we'll nurture budding directors and script writing talents through the Film Development Fund. To enhance the two-way flow of talents within the GBA and respond proactively to the aspirations of the International Chambers of Commerce in Hong Kong, for the facilitation of non-Chinese Hong Kong residents to travel to the mainland cities of the GBA, I've put forward concrete proposals to the central government. I learned that relevant central authorities would actively consider facilitating the flow of talents between Guangdong and Hong Kong, especially the relevant arrangements which will facilitate non-Chinese nationals residing in Hong Kong to travel to the mainland and cities of GBA for business, research, exchanges, and visits, etc. To this end, they will agree to discuss the matter with the Hong Kong HKSAR government. By the end of this year, these efforts will enhance Hong Kong's attractiveness to foreign businesses and overseas talents. Over the past 2 years, Hong Kong has faced severe challenges, prompting us to rethink the positioning and focus of our youth work. On the one hand, we should establish more effective channels to gauge the views of young people of different backgrounds in order to better meet their needs in areas such as education, career pursuits, housing, upward mobility, and development of their potential. On the other hand, we need to put more emphasis on nurturing young people's positive thinking to help them develop positive values and enable them to become a new generation with a sense of responsibility and with an aspiration and willingness to strive for the future of our country and of Hong Kong. In this connection, I invite the Youth Development Commission to explore ways to enrich its existing program and launch new funding initiatives. For the policy address public consultation this year, I've arranged 3 special sessions to meet with students, young people, and listen to their views in person. I hope that there will be more exchange opportunities following the delivery of this policy address. The central government also cares about our young people. The 14th Five-Year Plan mentions facilitating young people of Hong Kong and Macau to study, work, and start businesses in mainland cities of the GBA and establishing a brand of quality exchanges among the young people of Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. Recently, the central authorities and relevant municipal governments have also introduced measures to support the development of Hong Kong young people in mainland, including support for the funding scheme for youth entrepreneurship in the GBA and GBA Youth Employment Scheme, as stated in my policy address last year, as well as support for enhancing various mainland internship and exchange programs. To encourage young people to participate in policy discussion, we have regularized a member self-recommendation scheme for youth, under which young people aged between 18 and 35 are recruited on a regular basis to participate in government advisory committees. Up till now, around 440 posts are held by about 270 young people who have been appointed to SABs through MSSY. The overall ratio of appointing young members in ASBs have increased from 7.8% at the end of 2017 to currently 14.8%, gradually reaching the target of 15% set by the current term government. While we have an ambitious plan to deliver, our top priority right now remains clear. That is to do our best to control the epidemic for the community so that normal cross-boundary flow of people can be resumed as soon as possible. Looking back in our fight against the epidemic over the past 21 months, I and my colleagues, as well as the HKSAR expert teams, have strictly implemented, with financial justifications, the strategy of guarding against the importation of cases and resurgence of local infections. Thanks to the staunch support of the general public, we have weathered 4 waves of surging cases and have adeptly adjusted our anti-epidemic strategy in light of experience. This strategy has proven effective, as Hong Kong's figures on confirmed and fatal cases are among the lowest in the world. For a city as compact as Hong Kong, with the magnitude of flow of people and goods, every Hong Kong citizen should be given credit for this achievement. I would like to express my sincere thanks to each and everyone who has joined the fight against the epidemic, be they from the civil service, the healthcare and residential care sectors, or other trades. The commitment and dedication have enabled society to maintain normal operation as far as practicable amid the epidemic. What is more, on behalf of the Hong Kong HKSAR, I have to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the central government for its care and support for our anti-epidemic work. Last month, the Chief Secretary of Administration led a delegation of the Hong Kong HKSAR government to attend a meeting on anti-epidemic work with relevant authorities in the mainland. During the meeting, the 2 sides explored in detail matters relating to the gradual and order resumption of quarantine-free travel between the two places and assess the possible risks after resumption of quarantine-free travel. The two sides will further study the related details and strive to hold a second meeting as soon as possible. To resume cross-boundary travel, the support of the public is vital. If you, your family, or friends have not got a jab yet, please do not hesitate anymore and get vaccinated as soon as possible to prevent yourself and your family from infection and help create favorable conditions for cross-boundary travel. Mr. President, honourable members and fellow citizens, as I sum up the last policy address for my 5-year term of office, I would like to express a few words that are dear to my heart. I left university and joined the government 41 years ago. It has always been my belief that with the vision to serve the community and the readiness to act with a proactive style, I could help build a fairer and more compassionate society for Hong Kong from within the establishment. It has been my honor to participate in the successful return of Hong Kong to the motherland. Since reunification, I've worked in different positions to implement one country, two systems to ensure the long-term prosperity and stability of Hong Kong. When I assumed office as the Chief Executive for the Hong Kong SAR some 4 years ago, I deeply felt that I was charged with a heavy responsibility. I realized that this would be the greatest honor in my career and no doubt the biggest challenge in my life. Within 2 years of taking office, I came under unprecedented pressure due to opposition of the proposed statute amendments, the Fugitive Offenders Ordinance, the social unrest, the incessant and gross interference in Hong Kong affairs by external forces, as well as the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The driving force backing me up in overcoming all these challenges come from the earnest words of the central government that it will always provide staunch support to Hong Kong. My pledge to always stand by the side of people of Hong Kong when I took office, and the unfailing trust and support of my family. Today, under the double safeguards of national security and the improved electoral system, Hong Kong is back on the right track of one country, two systems. I'm confident that Hong Kong is much stronger than ever, and I'm most convinced that Hong Kong can integrate into the overall development of the country and play an irreplaceable role as our country strikes towards the second centenary goal of the nation. And of course, I wish that we can nurture a new generation with a sense of national identity and social responsibility, as well as an affection for Hong Kong, and pass on the torch to them. The coming year, 2022, will mark the important occasion of the 25th anniversary of Hong Kong's return to the motherland. Led by the Chief Secretary of Administration, a committee comprising bureaus and departments has commenced preparatory work for a series of celebration activities and will liaise with various sectors of the community in due course to jointly organize more exciting events for the public to rejoice in celebration of our return to the motherland. There have been views that the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Hong Kong SAR is halfway of the journey, that things should remain unchanged for 50 years as enshrined in the Basic Law, and the beginning to the second half of the implementation of one country, two systems. In my view, however, under the steer of the central government and with the cooperation of the Hong Kong SAR, we have, through one country, two systems, improved our legal system and enforcement mechanisms required for safeguarding national safety and enhance the electoral system that conforms to the constitutional order of the Hong Kong SAR. Safeguarded by the Constitution and the Basic Law, one country, two systems already become one of the strengths of the governance system of a country. So long as the Hong Kong SAR firmly observes and upholds the principle of one country and fulfills the requirement of patriots, administering Hong Kong, the two systems will definitely thrive and flourish, and Hong Kong will continue to be cherished by our country. At this new start, the 2021 policy address has unfolded a new paradigm and set out a new blueprint. Let us stand united and set off to building a bright future together. Thank you. The Chief Executive has delivered the policy address to the Council and now leaves the chamber. Members, please stand.